The beginning. For Izuku Midoriya life in general sucked for so many reasons. For one, he was quickless, which meant that in a society that worshipped and accepted those with power generally were the ones that held sway over those that didn't. Like himself, he was a subject of ridicule and abuse, and not just from his classmates and his one-time friend Katsuki Bakugo, but also others that believed that due to him being quirkless, he was not truly human and in such not really worth anything. His life did not matter, so he could be beaten and abused without any repercussions. That was his life, and it sucked. He had made the mistake of running this time, knowing that if he had just accepted the few insults and minor beating it would be over. But he had run, which would result in a much more severe beating than he would have had before. That had been a mistake, though he already had one beating earlier and did not relish in being the subject of another. The gym teacher had beat him 2 hours ago for not showing the proper respect to him. Izuku knew that was bullshit. Mr. Orosaki just wanted to hit him due to that the elder man had a rotten day and needed to take it out on someone. That someone was always him. It really did not matter to the older man that he was 3 times larger than his victim or that his quirk gave him steel knuckles. All that really concerned Orosaki is when Izuku bled on his sneakers, marking them with drops of blood, which he then punished Izuku more. So when he later was confronted by Bakugo and 2 others that hung out with his one-time friend, he had made the mistake of running, not wanting to be harmed any more than he already was. Now all 3 chased him, and the 2 cronies cackled with glee at the prospect of how much of a beating that Izuku would receive for daring to run away from his betters. For Izuku Midoriya life in general sucked and was hell. What made it worse was no one really cared. Not the teachers, not the heroes, and not the police. When he finally took a good look at where he was, Izuku winced. "Where am I?" he asked, gasping for breath, slipping through a hole in a fence and heading towards what he could tell was an open warehouse door, hoping that once inside, he could find a good place to hide. Inside the dismal warehouse, Izuku grimaced. The whole building had several hundred metal-sealed barrels, and all of them had some type of warning hazmat stickers on them. All in all, the worst place to hide from someone that had a nitroglycerin-based quirk. One mistake, and it could spell disaster for anyone stupid enough to be anywhere near any of the barrels. But what choice did he have? If he left, Bakugo and his cronies would make him pay for running. So he carefully slipped his way through the barrels and hoped that none of them were leaking. The only saving grace was when Bakugo entered. He had common sense not to actually go inside. "I am not going in there, Bakugo," one of them said, and Bakugo nodded. Deku would not be stupid enough to go in here. He must be hiding somewhere nearby. Find him. I owe him a serious beatdown for being such a stupid jackass. Bakugo growled as he moved away from the open door. It is about to rain, so his ass-kicking can wait until tomorrow. Inside, behind several barrels marked with big M's, Izuku sighed with relief and decided not to press his luck. Thankfully, today was Friday, and if necessary, he would stay inside his and his mother's apartment until he had to leave on Monday for school. There has to be another door, Izuku muttered, glancing about for anything that looked like a door that led out of the building of death. Seeing an exit sign, he smiled, believing that perhaps his luck was holding out. Edging past the barrels, he headed for the door, not knowing that the owner of the warehouse had set the building to be involved in a natural disaster accident. Up on the roof was a lightning rod that had wires running to several of the barrels of flammable materials. The owner had the idea that during a thunderstorm the lightning would hit the rod, and then the whole warehouse would go up in flames. He then would put in a claim to his insurance company and make millions. Nearing the door, he again sighed with relief and then winced when his bruised right side ribs touched the top of a barrel. In his mad flight away from Bakugo, his adrenaline blocked out his pain from his earlier beating by Orosaki, and now he was beginning to feel the onset of pain. Opening the door, he groaned. The door led to another room. This one had several glass containers filled with different colored liquids, and all of them had skulls and crossbones stuck on them. "So much for luck," he muttered, and then noticed another door just on the other side of the smaller room. Shrugging, he eased himself towards it. He had heard the distant clash of thunder and knew soon it would probably downpour. He wanted to get home before that happened. In the middle of the room, he heard an explosion, and then everything went white. Lightning had hit, and the surge of energy flowed down the wire, sparking off the flammable materials that exploded. In the smaller room, the explosions basically knocked Izuku down onto the floor. Again, lightning struck the rod, and this time it surged into the small room and the sealed chemicals stored there. The glass containers shattered, splashing all about the room and onto Izuku. The lightning that pulsed within the room flowed over him, and he burst into flames. In agony, he crawled towards the door, and again he was struck by lightning. He screamed and screamed and screamed. Then mercifully he passed out. Revival. Awakening hours later among the rubble, Izuku inhaled deeply. Standing up, he expected to find himself burned and in agony. Confused, he looked at himself. His school uniform was tattered and burned. But he was fine. Touching his face, he sighed with relief. He fully expected to be nothing more than a charred, disfigured mess. If he actually woke up after he passed out. Moving out of the rubble, he wobbled slightly. A sudden wave of exhaustion hit him hard. Swallowing dryly, he made his way out of the rubble and headed for home. He would seek answers later. Right now, he just wanted to get home and rest. En route, he felt like he was walking through mud. He could barely lift his feet, and it took him a good 2 hours to reach the nearest transit train. Slumping in one of the seats, he could hardly keep his eyes open, and he had to force himself to stay awake. When the train reached his stop, he groaned as he stood and stumbled out of the transit car. Sweat poured down his face, and he was tempted to just lay down on the sidewalk. But when he finally reached his and his mother's apartment, building a new reserve of resolve filled him. His bed beckoned to him, and in moments he reached the apartment. Dropping to his knees, he crawled inside and straight to his bedroom. Thankfully, his mother was not there, and he knew she would not be for at least another hour or so. She cleaned other apartments for some extra money. Crawling into his room, he removed the taters of his school uniform and dropped them in the trash. Climbing up onto his bed, he collapsed, and as soon as his head hit the pillow, he was unconscious. When his mother came home, she found him in his bed asleep, so she decided to just let him sleep. But at noon the next day, she became concerned and went to wake him. "Izuku, Izuku, wake up," Inko Midoriya said as she shook him and his eyes opened. "You have been asleep for almost 20 hours. Are you all right?" she asked, and he inhaled a deep breath, then smiled. "Yes, actually I feel great," Izuku replied, getting up, and with a deep exhale, he had a sudden urge to go to the bathroom. Walking towards the door, she chuckled. "Well, lunch is ready. We got all those leftovers to get rid of," Inko told him and went to wait for him at the table. In the bathroom, after taking care of some business that took a lot longer than he expected, Izuku pulled off his t-shirt, and when he looked at himself in the mirror, he gasped. His chest and arms were more muscular than what they were a few days ago. Then he lightly touched where earlier his ribs were bruised. There was no sign of any bruise and no pain at all. There was no sign of any of the injuries that Arasaki had inflicted upon him. Glancing down, he noticed that his legs were bigger and broader than before. What the? Izuku was dumbfounded, and then he remembered last night when the chemicals splashed onto him. He began to wonder if perhaps it had done something remarkable to him. Checking himself in the mirror, he smiled. Then his stomach rumbled, and he quickly pulled on a clear long-sleeved t-shirt. Going out to the table where 4 days of leftovers sat. Taking a large plate full, he began to eat, then eat and eat. Soon, all the leftovers were gone. Inko stared at him in shock. "My someone was hungry," Inko commented with a huge smile, pleased that Izuku had a better and healthier appetite than he normally did. He nodded as he finished off the last of the chicken with brown rice. "Oh, could you do me a favor today? I need to clean Mrs. Toshinorji's apartment. I also need to mail in the rent. Could you take this down to the post office and send it out?" She pushed an envelope towards him, and he nodded. He would have to chance it that he would not run into Bakugo. He tried to help his mother out whenever he could, which meant going grocery shopping and do other errands when necessary. The errand might even give him the chance to go back to the warehouse and try to figure out what happened to him. "Sure, Mom. No problem." Standing, Izuku headed back to his room to take a shower and get dressed. Once under the spray of the shower, he moved his hands over his now muscular body. It had not been a delusion. He somehow gained muscle mass and in general felt stronger than he did before. "Weird," he whispered with a small smile. No longer looking scrawny as he once did. When he came out of his room, his mother was gone. So after picking up the envelope, he made his way first to the post office. One that was done, he decided to walk to the warehouse. He felt so energized that he felt like he could walk the 10 miles easily. Near the end of the street, he heard a voice that he had hoped to avoid. "DKU." Bakugo growled loudly, stomping towards him with his hands sparking small explosions. Nowhere to run this time. Fat Wing and Fingers are blocking your escape route. His one-time friend said, gloating as he smirked evilly. Glancing to his left, and then his right, he saw Bakugo's cronies. Both smiled with sadistic grins. There was only one way for Izuku to escape, back down the street. But there were no alleys or other streets for at least a half-mile. The three would easily catch up to him, or Bakugo would unleash a blast at him to stop him, or at the very least slow him down long enough for the three to pound on him. He actually had no choice. So he began to run, and the three were in hot pursuit. Not this time, weakling. This time you are going to regret running from what is coming to you. Bakugo said, sneering as he was about to unleash a blast, and then stumbled to a stop when Izuku blurred away so fast that the other could barely register that it was him. What the fuck? Dropping his hands as he tried to even see where Izuku was. But he was gone. Bakugo. What? That was Deku, wasn't it? He just sort of... I am freaking out. Did that loser just? Never mind, I do not want to know. Yubi said as he walked away, leaving his leader to try to figure out what had happened. 1 second, he was about to blast Izuku, and the next the other was just gone, streaking away in a blur of shapes. Shaking his head, he walked back home. Tomorrow he would confront Izuku again and demand to know how the other had done that. For he knew that Izuku did not have a quirk, so he suspected it was just some type of trick. Gotta run fast, gotta get away. Izuku muttered as he began to run. Then before he realized what was happening, he was moving so fast that the air whizzed by his ears, and cars, buildings, and people were nothing but blurred objects. In seconds he was on the beach and impossibly streaking on the water. I am running on water, he whispered in shock. Turning, he headed back towards shore, which looked about a mile away. Nearing the beach, he stopped and dropped into about 3 feet of water, not even breathing hard. What the fuck was that? He said aloud, stepping out of the water, and when he reached the shore he dropped to his knees. Looking down at himself, he saw that his clothes were shredded. He stood. Have to try that again, he said then with a jolt. He was running again, this time down the running trail next to the garbage-infested beach. He could actually tell what the blurs were as he ran. He passed billboards, buildings, and trees in an instant, and within a few moments he was miles away from where he once was. He began to laugh. Wow, that was awesome, he said, and as he began to process the fact that he could run and move at blinding speed, his stomach rumbled. Making a friend. Walking into Burger King, Izuku stood in front of the counter, and the girl behind the counter looked at him oddly. His clothes were a complete disaster, but at the moment all he could think about was that he was hungry. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out 1,000 yen. How many cheeseburgers can this get me? Oh, and a large Diet Coke. He asked. The pink girl with horns blinked and then quickly typed in the order. About 26. Do you want 26 cheeseburgers? The girl asked, and Izuku smiled. Yes, please. Izuku handed her the money, and within 5 minutes the girl pushed a tray heaped with 26 cheeseburgers. She was expecting a group of the boy's friends to come in and eat. She was not expecting him to go sit down at one of the tables and basically inhale the cheeseburgers himself. When the tattered-seeming boy came in, Mina Ashido had an urge to call the manager. But after he ordered and then ate those mini cheeseburgers, she was astounded at how someone as ripped as him could pack away that many of them. That, and she thought he was kind of cute. She had taken this job so she would have enough money to buy a really valuable collectible that was for sale on eBay. Working on weekends and after school for a few hours, she just about had enough to buy it. A limited edition signed by Sigourney Weaver alien queen replica 14-inch statue. Walking over to the table, she stared down at the boy and shook her head. That was a lot of cheeseburgers, she commented, and then smiled. He looked up at her and finally seemed to notice her. Yeah, I was really hungry. Sorry if I seemed out of it when I came in, Izuku said, and the girl shrugged. She picked up the tray and dumped the wrappers in the trash, putting the tray on top of the garbage can. That's okay. How did you eat all those? Mina asked, and Izuku shrugged. He actually had no idea, but he suspected it had to do with his new ability. I mean, the last person to even come close to that was this big, chested dark-haired girl. She ate about 10 of them plus over a half-dozen large fries. But she told me she needed limpets to create things. Is that why you needed to eat so many? It is part of your quirk? She asked, and he inhaled sharply. I am quirkless, Izuku said sadly, knowing that now the pretty pink girl would make a hasty retreat. Now that he actually noticed she was extremely pretty, even though she had pink skin and hair with two small horns. But she also had coolest eyes he had ever seen. They black and yellow irises and seemed to sparkle. She did not move, which confused him. I said I am quirkless. Are you going to like? I don't know. Stop being nice to me now. He asked, and she shook her head. Nope. By the way, I am Mina Ishido, and you are? Mina said, introducing herself, and Izuku smiled broadly. Izuku Midoriya, I am a little confused. You know, most people, when they find out that I am quirkless, they treat me differently. Like I am less than human. Izuku said sadly, and Mina giggled. I guess people treat me about the same as being quirkless. I am a quirk oddity. Quirk altered abnormal is the polite term. The impolite one is freak. Mina told him, and Izuku inhaled softly. What she said was true. There were those that treated the ones that believed that those altered by their quirks were not truly human, just like the ones that were quirkless. She sat down across from him. So Izuku Midoriya, tell me about yourself, she said with a small smile. He glanced over at the counter, and she shrugged. Oh, don't fret about that. This was my last day. I only took this job to get enough money to buy something I wanted off eBay. Actually, about 3 months, I am going to take the hero exam and try to get into the UA. Izuku smiled at her. That is what I want to do, Izuku said, and she wrinkled her brow slightly, shaking her head. Are you sure that is wise? I mean, without a quirk you don't stand much of a chance. The practical test is supposed to be a killer, Mina said, and Izuku just simply smiled. He did not know what his ultra speed was yet, but he did know it was not a quirk. So in essence, he was still quirkless. Ishido, what are you doing? Get back to work, the manager demanded, and Mina took off her hat and tossed it to the older man, then pulled off the black shirt and tossed it to him as well. For a brief second, Izuku stared at her chest as she pulled the Burger King shirt over her head. When she had her arms straight up, it really highlighted how nice her chest was, especially since she was wearing a V-neck t-shirt that showed an impressive amount of cleavage. As she turned back towards him, he quickly stopped from staring at her chest and looked directly at her. Sorry, Tangi, I just quit, Mina said with a huge smile. Since I no longer work here, do you want maybe go for a walk? She asked Izuku, who nodded vigorously. Once outside, she laughed and gestured back inside the Burger King. Never work at one of these. The pay is all right, but the work really sucks, she told him, and then began to walk in no specific direction. So what is this thing you want off eBay? What is it? Izuku asked, and Mina smiled over at him broadly. Only the coolest thing ever. It is a replica statue of one of the greatest movie creatures ever made, a genuine alien queen signed by Sigourney Weaver, Mina said gleefully, and Izuku looked at her confused. A what? Izuku asked, and Mina stopped walking and stared over at him appalled. An alien queen. You know, from the movie Alien, or actually it is from one of the sequels, she is like the most awesome badass monsters out there, Mina told him, and he still looked confused. If we're going to hang out together, Izuku, you have to see those movies. Hey, I got an idea. Tomorrow they are playing all of them at the Gallery Movie Theater. We could go. That hit Izuku like one of Kachin's blasts. He stumbled and began to gasp for air. Wait, like a date? Izuku stammered out, and Mina giggled. Yeah, why not? Sure, we just met and all, but I am kind of spontaneous, so how about it? Mina asked, and Izuku felt faint. She exhaled softly and stopped smiling. Oh, is it because of how I look that you don't want to? She asked him sullenly, and Izuku shook his head. No, not at all. I actually think you are really cute. Izuku whispered the last two words, but Mina heard him. I have never been on a date before, he confessed, and Mina giggled. That is nice to know you think I am really cute. By the way, I think you are really cute too. As for going on a date, I never have with anyone before either. So how about we try it, and if it flops, we just be friends? Mina asked with a huge smile. Okay, Izuku replied nervously, and with that they continued walking. He felt like he could run around the planet, and with what happened to him, he suspected that he could easily. He still wanted to test what he could do, but he also did not want to tell anyone about it yet. Though if he did tell someone, it probably would be Mina. She was just so friendly and nice that he could not help but like her. They continued to talk about each other, and Izuku learned that Mina was the youngest and had an older brother. Her mother and father both worked in advertising, and they had just moved back here from the United States about 5 months ago. She was a bit reluctant to tell him about her quirk, but when she did, he was really impressed. Without even noticing where he was, they had neared a street in the suburbs. "That is my house right over there," Mina said as she stopped walking. I do not think it would be a good idea to subject you to my parents and brother yet. I want you to like me, and they would ruin that rather quickly," she told him, and Izuku could almost relate to that. He did not want her to meet his mother yet, because she would assume that he and Mina were a couple and then really embarrass him. "That is okay. So, what time you wanna?" Izuku asked, and Mina pulled out her phone. She checked the times for the showings. "The first one starts at 9 a.m. So let's meet at the gallery at 8:30 a.m. Oh, and give me your number," Mina demanded, and he quickly gave it to her. She dialed it, and when he checked his, he found an unknown number on his screen. "There, we got each other's number. So no standing me up tomorrow, or I will hunt you down," she said with a huge mischievous smile. He shook his head. "Wouldn't dream of it. Okay, I have no idea what to do now," Izuku said softly, and Mina giggled, then held out her hand. He clasped it, and they shook hands. "See you tomorrow, Midoriya?" "Oh, I do not like that. Too formal." Izuku. "No, too. I know. Izzy. See you tomorrow, Izzy." Mina then walked off towards her house. He stood there for several minutes. "Izzy," Izuku whispered, not liking the nickname she had just made up for him. With that, he turned and headed back home. Turning around the corner, he decided to run, and within a minute he was back in front of his apartment building. "Izuku, what happened to your clothes?" "There. They are. You did not leave the apartment wearing those rags, did you?" Inko Midoriya, his mother asked, and Izuku just did not know what to say. So he went inside. He felt hungry again. Learning curve. Finding a secluded spot within the nearby park, Izuku began to test himself. Over by a tree, he had a bag full of snacks for after. He had arisen at 6 a.m. and made his way to the park to see what he could do. The first test that he had come up with was to see if his speed was not just in his legs. Taking out a 1,000-piece puzzle, he sat at a picnic table and within 2 seconds had it done. Okay, so I can do things at an accelerated pace. The next test was for hand and eye coordination. Pulling out a dozen tennis balls, he began to juggle them. The balls blurred around, and even though he could see them, he knew that they were going around so fast, it looked like a yellow streak. He then conducted some other tests and found out that whatever happened to him had also accelerated his reflexes, his stamina, and endurance. Glancing at his watch, he walked over to his snack bag and downed several granola bars. "Problem: it seems that I need a great deal of calories every time I use my speed," he mumbled, chewing down the 9th bar and reaching for another. Picking up the empty bag, he ran at moderate speed towards home, perhaps only about 100 miles per hour. He needed to clean up and get ready for his date, having no intention of being late. Reaching home within a few minutes, heading straight for his bathroom. It felt weird at times. Everything and everyone seemed to be moving slower at times. It really strained his patience. After a short shower, he dressed, deciding that he would wear black jeans and a light blue long-sleeve t-shirt. He even tried to comb the curliness out of his hair, but that was a lost cause. Even when he tried gel, his hair just would basically bounce back to be a fluffy with patches of held-down parts. So he gave up. Once more in the living room, his mother saw him. "You are dressed somewhat better than usual on a Saturday," Inko commented, and Izuku looked down at himself. He had not intended to tell her in case she overreacted, but he knew she would subtly pester him until he disclosed the change from normal. "I am going to the movies with a new friend," Izuku said as he stepped over to the refrigerator and grabbed a protein shake, drinking it down. "Oh, and is this new friend a girl?" Inko asked with a huge smile, and Izuku slowly nodded. "My son has a girlfriend," she squealed with delight, and Izuku groaned. "No, this is just our first date," Izuku stated firmly, and Inko began to pummel him with questions. Like, who is she? What is her name? Is she pretty? Where did you meet her? And so on and so on. He answered a couple of them, and then began to make a hasty exit. Before he could reach the door, she intercepted him and slapped 2,000 yen into his hand with a smile. "Thanks, Mom," he said, and she smiled. "Have a good time. At some point I demand to meet her," Inko told him, and then swatted him on the butt to get him out the door. "Get going, you do not want to be late," she said, and then laughed happily as he left. She had been worried about him for so long, and now he miraculously found a girl. She just prayed that is not like almost 2 years ago when one of the girls from his school told him that she liked him, and then after getting his hopes up, she turned on him in front of her friends. It had devastated him to learn that she only did that to show just how vindictive she could be. When Inko complained to the school, the principal basically blew her off and told her that there was nothing he could do. She silently swore if that is what this girl is intending to do to Izuku, then she would not simply let it go. Not this time. 0. Slapping her alarm clock with aggravation, Mina sat up and yawned, stretching her arms above her head. Mornings suck, she stated, then smiled. Today was her first date with Izuku, and she actually could not wait. Glancing over at her laptop, she saw the confirmation of her purchase on the screen. The second she made it to her room, she had selected Buy It Now and paid for the Alien Queen replica, then spent an hour picking out the perfect outfit for her date with Izuku. Deciding upon knee-length blue jean shorts and a V-neck white t-shirt with a pink carnation right smack in the middle. She had to laugh at herself. Last year she was not so endowed as she was now, and it was nice. Though growing up did have its problems. For one, she did not enjoy the monthly cycles or when some older pervert came onto her. Though she did like the idea that she was now old enough to seek out a boyfriend. A few months ago, her whole family went to a carnival, and a fortune teller named Madame Serena had told her that she would find her one true love, and he would be what would be considered strange. Izuku was definitely strange, and she did not mind strange, for she was considered a bit odd. So she took it that Izuku was who Serena meant. It was not just that, she generally liked him. For one, he was cute, and from what she could tell, he was nicely put together. With an audible sigh, she stopped musing and headed for the bathroom to take a shower. She only had 3 hours to get ready for her first date with Izuku, and she did not want to be late. Coming downstairs, she walked into the kitchen where her mother Keiko and her father Jean both were sitting at the kitchen table. When her mother saw her, she was surprised. "You are up early this morning. Usually you do not get up until at least 10 a.m. on a Saturday," her mother commented, and Mina simply moved over to the coffee pot. "I am meeting someone. We are going to the gallery to see a movie or two," Mina simply said, not really wanting to go into details. She hoped that they would assume she was going with one of her friends from school. Her father noticed her anxiety and pounced. "So who is this someone? If it was Miyagi or Miresa, you would have said it was either or both of them. So who is it?" Her father Jean asked, and Mina simply sipped her coffee. Her mother snapped her fingers. "She has a date with a boy. That has to be it," her mother Keiko declared, and Mina decided not to confirm or deny that statement. "Oh, I bet it is that Ijiro Kirishima. She has been hanging out with him now and again," her father said with a small smile, and Mina shook her head. "I am not saying, and Ijiro and I are just friends," Mina stated, but her parents were on the hunt, and neither would give up until they had the answer. Though she knew she should have let them think it was Ijiro, then they would let it go. They had both met him, and they both thought he was a very nice boy. She though believed that he was not exactly her type. A better friend than a possible love interest. Finishing her coffee, she headed back upstairs to brush her teeth. She did not want, if the opportunity arose, for her breath to smell like coffee if by some chance she got to kiss Izuku. Having bad breath might make their first kiss a little disgusting. Coming back down, both of her parents were waiting. "Okay, if it isn't Ijiro, then who is it?" her father demanded, and Mina shook her head. "Nope, not telling," Mina stated, walking to the door. She wanted to keep Izuku far away from her parents as long as possible. For one, her father would probably read him the riot act along with asking what his intentions were for his daughter. Attempting to play the stern, protective father, she really did not worry that they would be too put off that he was quirkless. Her parents were not biased assholes like most people were. "See you guys later." Much later, she added and ducked out the door. She must really like this boy if she is willing to keep him a secret and away from us, Keiko said with a huge smile. "Hey, we are not that bad. If I was that bad, I would go to the gallery and spy on them," Jean said with a mischievous smirk, reaching for his car keys. His wife stopped him. "No, I do not think that would be a good idea. If she catches us doing that, she would never forgive us, and it might even scare him off," Keiko stated, and then a thought came to her. Maybe this someone Mina was meeting and having a date with was actually a girl. Not that there would be anything wrong with that. She laughed that thought out of her head. She had seen Mina gush over certain boy and young men TV and movie stars. If she was the other way, she bet her daughter would not stare at the boys and young men so intently. So it had to be a boy. The bad date made worse. Both arriving at about the same time, Mina giggled as she neared him. I guess neither of us wanted to get her late, she commented, and he smiled. Stepping into the theater, they decided to Dutch it and they each bought their own ticket. But Izuku insisted on buying the snacks. At the counter, he ordered a jumbo popcorn, an extra large nachos with cheese, and a large Diet Coke. Then asked her what she wanted. She gasped, Izzy, that is a lot of. Ain't you worried that you might get, I don't know, fat? She said, and he shook his head. No, not at all. So, since I am paying, go ahead and order yours. Izuku told her, and she went with a medium popcorn and a regular Coke with a slice of lemon. She still could not get over how much popcorn and nachos he had. Once inside, she elected for them to sit in the middle of the theater so they could really experience the movies. They had a good half hour before the movie started, and the trivia flashed on the screen. I love these. Let's see. Actor of a 1967 movie called El Dorado, co-starring Robert Mitchum. Mina looked over at Izuku, and he had no idea, even with the answer jumbled on the bottom of the screen. Gotta be John Wayne, she stated, and then the screen flipped to show the answer. Hey, you were right, Izuku said, and Mina smiled broadly. I rule on these. Okay, here is the next one. Movie. Original played date, 2012. Starring Adam Sandler, Kevin James, and Selena Gomez. Cartoon movie. So want to take a guess? Mina asked him, and he stared at the screen. Wait, I know this one. I watched it, and I loved it even though it was not a hero movie. Let's see Adam Sandler and Kevin James. Izuku frowned. The answer was on the tip of his tongue. The timer ran down, and right before it hit 0. Hotel Transylvania. Mina sang, and the screen flipped showing she was right again. That is 2-0. Want to play some more, or will you concede that I am the best? She asked him, and he held his hands up in surrender. Then the next one was one he knew right off the bat. Rats, I know that one. 1978 movie, starring Christopher Reed, Gene Hackman, and Marion Brando. That is so easy. Izuku read it off, and they both said the answer together. Superman. Too bad you conceded, that would have given you a point. Mina stated with a huge smile, and Izuku chuckled. Oh well, I doubt I would get the next one. Izuku said, and when the question came up he knew he would never get it. So he did not even bother trying. Mina decided to stop since when it came to movies she was the queen of trivia, and she did not want Izuku to feel bad. This was supposed to be a date, and they both should have fun. She watched as he basically inhaled the nachos and then ate half the popcorn. Wow, where do you put it all? Mina asked, and he shrugged. Izuku was tempted to tell her about what he could do. He was not entirely sure what it was in the first place. All he knew was that he could move really fast, and that he needed to eat a lot to somehow fuel it. Sure, he had conducted some tests, but he suspected that there was more to it than just being able to run at super speed. Just before the next trivia question came up, the house lights snapped back to full brightness. Both of them could easily see that there were about 24 people sitting all about the theater, and when 5 men entered, the lead one strode down in front of the screen, holding up an AK-47 assault rifle. He sneered as he looked at all the staring faces. No one move, and you will not be harmed. We are the infinite light, and we are dedicated to bring true freedom to the oppressed. The smaller of the 5 said as he brandished his weapon before him, pointing it at one and then another of those within the theater. Once the government gives in to our demands, you will be set free, unless they or you do something stupid, which would result in my men shooting you. Until then, just remain seated. 2 of the other armed men swaggered over towards the 2 exits, while the other 2 walked along the aisles smirking at the 24 or so in the audience. One of them stopped and smiled down at Mina. Hey, look at here. She ain't bad looking for a freak. What do you say, Hinjo? Think I could take this one with us when we bail? The man said, staring down at her cleavage. She moved her hands over her chest and glared up at him. Touch me, and I will burn you. Mina growled, and the man laughed. Izuku was about to stand up, but Mina placed a restraining hand on his arm. Don't, Izzy. This jackass wants you to do something so that he can hurt you, making himself look like a big tough idiot, she said to him, and Izuku slumped back in his seat. The man laughed harder. She got brains too. Shame. I like my women to be on the dumb side. Still, I would not mind spending a few hours in between your legs. Of course, you might be more accommodating when we start shooting some of you." The man continued on, and Mina visibly relaxed, still gripping Izuku's arm. Then noticed that Izuku was gazing about the theater, mumbling something that sounded like he was counting. Then he smiled over at her. "After this, I promise to explain everything," Izuku said to her, and Mina was confused. She gripped his arm tighter. "Don't do anything stupid. These assholes mean business, so whatever you are." Mina suddenly felt a breeze gust over her, causing her to blink. When she opened her eyes, she was outside the theater, and there were police and heroes beginning to arrive. Thinking, "Darn it, how the fuck did I get out here?" she asked as she peered about, now completely confused. Then watched as others from the theater began to just appear out of nowhere. All she could see was some type of blur go to and from the theater over and over again. Each time another was brought out, staring about as confused as she was. She immediately suspected that whatever this was had to do with Izuku. Inside the theater, Hinjo, the leader of the small group of supposed freedom fighters, was panicking. One after another of their hostages were vanishing right before his and his men's eyes. Within 3 minutes, all the hostages were gone, and all that was left was him and his men. When one of his men suddenly was wrapped head to toe in a rope, then he seemed to vanish like the hostages. Then, to add to his panic, all of their expensive guns fell apart in their hands, and another of his men disappeared. "Hinjo, what should we do?" one of his men asked, and then he too vanished. 1 minute later, he was alone, unarmed, and sweating with fear. He blinked, and the green-haired teenager that Benson was trying to goad appeared in front of him. "What the fuck are you?" Hinjo asked, stepping back from the young man with his hands out towards him. The boy simply glared at him. "You ruined my first date with her, so I thought I would ruin your whole scheme." The boy smiled, and then Hinjo felt a stiff breeze blow over him. He had blinked, and now he found himself in the back of a police car. Glancing about, he noticed that all of his comrades were in the back of other police cars. Even the police and heroes were dumbfounded on what had happened. Zipping back in front of Mina and handing her a candy bar from the snack bar, Izuku chomped down 3 other candy bars. "Don't worry, I paid for them. I left 200 yen on the counter," he said to her as she stared at him, and then the candy bar. "You said you did not have a quirk, so what? That was you, wasn't it?" Blurring about in a flash, Mina stated, and Izuku nodded. "You promised to explain what that was." She waited, and he looked about. How about somewhere more private?" Izuku suggested, and she smiled. He then picked her up bridal style. "Don't worry, I won't go as fast as before. If I did, you might lose your clothes," he told her, and blushed. She too blushed, but not about her losing her clothes. It was the fact that he had picked her up. She found herself liking it. Before she could comment on that, she felt herself being carried away. A lighter breeze flowed over her, and as she looked down, she could just make out Izuku's legs moving at incredible speed. She instantly knew one thing. However he was doing this, it was not a quirk. Within moments, he set her down again, and she knew exactly where they were. Dagoba Beach. Mounds of trash could be seen strewn everywhere. Looking out at the ocean, she shook her head. "You know, being lied to is not a good start of a friendship or a relationship," Mina stated, gazing back at him, and he rubbed his hand over the back of his neck, sighing loudly. "I actually did not lie. I am quirkless. This is something else. I was in an accident, and..." Izuku then started from the beginning. How he was chased by his antagonist and one-time friend, how he had entered an old warehouse, and how the accident occurred. That after he somehow survived, a day later he could move and run really fast. She listened intently, wanting to know more about him, especially more about his past, but she knew he would not divulge anything about that yet. "In essence, you did not lie to me, and since we only have known each other from yesterday, I can understand why you were reluctant to tell me." Mina smiled and then frowned. "Thanks to those idiots, our date pretty much ruined. While exposing you to the alien movies, that is. So how do we recover this date?" she asked, and he chuckled, then thought about it. He was hungry, and they needed to do something that they both would enjoy. She had told him she liked to dance. "I have an idea. Do you know how to roller skate?" Izuku asked, and she nodded vigorously. "Good, because about a mile from here is a roller rink. They play some decent music, and they have the best pizza around." He exhaled sharply and frowned. "What's wrong? It sounds perfect," Mina asked, and Izuku tried to smile, but failed. "Kaken and a lot of my classmates hang out there." I. I generally try to avoid them. Izuku said, his voice low, and Mina took his hand in hers. Hey, if nothing else, you probably can now kick their asses in a blink of an eye. If not, let's see how they like sulfuric acid. Mina stated, and Izuku smiled sheepishly. You know, our school districts are not that far apart. I kinda wish I got sent to your school instead of the one I go to. Don't you? She asked, and he glared out at the ocean. His face turned stern, and he closed his eyes. And no, I don't. Izuku declared, and Mina stared at him in shock. Why? Why wouldn't you want me to be there? Mina stammered out, feeling a little hurt that he would not have wanted her at his school. She was sure that they would have become friends, and maybe even closer than that. Because you would just be another that would. The girls in my school treat me like I am. I do not know if I could handle you doing it to me too. Izuku sadly said, and a few tears ran down his cheeks. She shook her head. No, I am sure we would have become friends. Mina declared, and Izuku continued to shake his head. You would have tried, but after some time, being singled out and probably being subjected to the same as me, you would have no choice but to become like them. Izuku said, and Mina continued to shake her head. She grabbed his right hand in her left. How can you even say that or think that? Are you telling me you do not have any friends at your school? Mina asked, and she almost feared the answer. Not a one. Actually, you are the first person other than my mom that I feel close to. Mina, my time at school is not pleasant. I am tormented, beaten, and treated like I do not matter at all, that I am not really human or alive. Izuku inhaled deeply, and more tears ran down his cheek. My mom has tried to do something, reported to the principal, the police, and even the local heroes. No one cares if a quirkless boy is, no one cares. He sniffed and reached up with his left hand to wipe away some tears. Mina growled. I care, Mina stated, squeezing his hand in hers, then reached up to wipe some of her own tears from her face. He smiled slightly over at her, and she smiled back. I will prove that I care. Let's walk to the roller rink, and I want you to tell me everything. She told him, and as they walked, he reluctantly and slowly told her all of it. She listened intently and tried to think of how to help him. She liked him a lot, and to hear what he has gone through, what he will probably continue to go through, sickened her. She needed to do something, but she had no idea what. Until then, she decided to change the subject. You know, with what you can do, you could easily get into UA, she said, and he shook his head. I need to get a better understanding of my speed. To do that, I need somewhere to, I don't know, see what I am capable of, Izuku said, and then stopped completely. He looked over at the line of city dumpsters that sat just on the outskirts of the beach. The city had placed them there in hopes of inspiring some of the locals to clean up Dagoba Beach. But there was mountains of trash, and it seemed an almost impossible task. He smiled. A thought came to him. This could work. What could work? Mina asked, stopping as well, as he gestured out onto the beach. I could after school come here and clean the beach, test myself, and it would also make me stronger, Izuku stated. Then they both continued to walk. Would it be all right if I come and keep you company while you are doing that? Mina asked, and he nodded. Good, then after each day, we can hang out, spend some time together, she suggested, and he had to admit that sounded like a great idea. Inside of the roller skating rink, she clapped her hands. This is going to be a blast. The date, part 2. Rolling around the rink, Mina smiled over at Izuku. This completely made up for what had happened at the gallery movie theater. Though she still wanted to introduce him to the wonder and pure greatness of the alien movies, especially the Queen Alien. But this was just as good. They had arrived a good hour ago and took a couple of spins, skate dancing, though mostly they just rolled around the rink holding hands. She liked holding his hand. It gave her a warm, tingling sensation in her heart. It had taken her a couple of minutes to completely get into having fun, since all she could think about was how he could even show any signs of joy or even still be the person he was now. Not after all that he had endured for years. She needed to do something, but she had no idea what. So she decided later she would ask her parents for advice. I am starving. How about we get a couple of pizzas and eat? Izuku suggested as he aimed his and her way towards the concession stand. Sounds good to me. Wait, did you say a couple of pizzas? Mina asked with a sly smile, then stared at him in shock as he basically inhaled 2.5 pizzas. You know that is a definite downside to your speed. You better hope that you don't end up looking like fat gum. She giggled, and Izuku could not help but laugh. I think that I have to have a lot of calories to sort of fuel it. That is something else I need to get a handle on. I need to build up my resistance to the need for fuel. Izuku stated, then looked at the remainder of the pizza. Did you eat enough? He asked, feeling a little guilty that he had eaten most of the pizza in front of her. She laughed and pushed the 2 last slices towards him. I had 2 slices, and that is plenty enough for me. I have no intention of getting pudgy. Mina told him, and he smiled over at her as he ate one of the slices. Even if you gained a few pounds, I would still think that you are beautiful. Izuku commented and then blushed, realizing that he actually said that out loud. She smiled at him coyly. Oh, so I have moved up from cute to beautiful. Mina could not help but feel that she had found the one that Madame Serena had told her about. He blushed even redder, stopping himself from taking the last slice. So want to skate some more, or go do something else? She asked, not willing for the date to end yet. I am not really into it, but there is an arcade just across the street. Izuku suggested, and Mina bounded to her feet. Awesome, let's go, Mina said, rolling her way over to the skate rental desk, and Izuku followed her after he discarded the empty pizza boxes. At the arcade, she got some change and headed straight to Whack-A-Mole. This one you should be able to dominate, she told him, and he wondered if it was cheating if he used his speed. She noticed his reluctance. Go ahead, it is not really cheating, you could call it training, she said, and he exhaled softly, picking up the mallet. An hour later, they had enough tickets for something that Mina had her eye on when they had come in. A Darth Vader talking bank. Holding it triumphantly, she smiled broadly. Thanks, Izzy. This is amazing. Izuku chuckled. I didn't realize you were a Star Wars fan, Izuku commented, and Mina held the bank against her. Oh yeah, I love Star Wars. Actually, I really love that cartoon series, Star Wars Rebels. Hated it when they ended it the way they did, Mina said, and Izuku smiled. That did suck, having Ezra leave that way. And they spent the last season hinting about a relationship with Sabine and then having him sacrifice himself like that, Izuku stated, and Mina nodded, looking at him warmly. So you were one of those, huh? Mina giggled and noticed his confused expression, so she elaborated. One of those that believe that Sabine and Ezra are destined to be together. Not that I disagree or anything. It was obvious that he had intense feelings for her, and she had the same for him. I guess it was a major downer that he never got to kiss her before sacrificing himself. Bet Sabine is regretting that one, she told him as they walked out of the arcade. The sun was setting and she knew that the date was coming to an end. What other cartoons do you like? Izuku asked. Mina reached over and took his hand once more in hers. Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes, and of course Rick and Morty. I know that is weird that I like Looney Tunes, but I love it when Daffy Duck gets blasted by Elmer Fudd, or when the wolf falls off cliffs, Mina told him, and Izuku laughed. Walking towards the local train station, Mina quickly checked for her train and time it left on her cell phone. You know, I could run you home, Izuku suggested, and Mina shook her head. Nope, I do not want to subject you to my parents quite yet. I am hoping to, maybe date you more. You meet them and you will use your speed to run far away, Mina said, and then chuckled. For a short moment he believed her, and then as she laughed, he could not help but laugh as well. She stepped in front of him. Well, the date started out pretty bad, but I got to say the ending was salvaged, she told him, and he had to agree. Maybe some other time. You can introduce me to the alien movies, Izuku said, and Mina smiled, then leaned closer and pecked him on the lips. Liking the sensation, she kissed him again. The train pulled up and she stayed in front of him for as long as she could. Call me later, when you get home, Mina said, and he nodded. Okay, see you on Monday, at about 4 p.m., near the dumpsters. With that, she stepped onto the train, and a minute later the doors closed. Taking a window seat, she gave him a small wave as the train pulled away. With a huge smile, she faced forward, and when she looked back out of the window, she saw Izuku pacing beside her window. Show off, she mouthed, not actually saying it out loud. He smiled, and then streaked away past the train. Confrontation. Reaching home, Izuku slowed down about 100 meters from his and his mother's apartment building. Of course, he felt hungry again, but it seemed his body was getting used to the drain, because he was not as hungry as the other times. Rounding the corner, he paled. There waiting for him was Bakugo and his 2 cronies. Squaring his shoulders, he walked purposely towards the main front entrance. Hey, there he is, Bakugo. Yubi said as he pointed one of his extra long fingers at him. About time you came back, Deku. Bakugo growled, moving his hands down to his side. Not today, Kakin. I don't want to deal with you today, Izuku said as he started to pass his three antagonists. Bakugo gasped audibly, not liking that Izuku basically was ignoring him. What? Bakugo roared, sparks of his power bursting from his fingers. Izuku shook his head. I had a good day today, and I have no intention of having you ruin it, Izuku stated, and both of Bakugo's cronies chuckled, as their leader grabbed Izuku's shirt front. Listen, asshole. You're going to tell me what the fuck that was yesterday, when you seemed to have disappeared in a blurring streak. Bakugo demanded, raising his left hand. Small explosions sparked from his hand. So Izuku decided to tell the truth. I have no idea what you were talking about, so let me go and let me by, Izuku declared, and Bakugo growled. Let you by? Let you by? All right, Deku, you asked for this. Bakugo rammed his left hand at Izuku and miraculously missed entirely. In less than a blink of an eye, he moved out of the path of Bakugo's attack, avoiding the blow and the small explosion. What the fuck was that? He demanded, and Izuku shrugged. Like I said, Kakin, I have no idea what you mean, Izuku said with a sly smile, then pulled himself away from Bakugo and went inside the apartment building, leaving his one-time friend completely confused. Not lowering his left fist, Bakugo shook his head. How did you miss Bakugo? Yubi asked, and Bakugo glared over at him. Shut the fuck up and let me think. Bakugo growled angrily, lowering his left hand. How did I miss? It was like Deku just moved out of the way in an instant. That is impossible. He does not have a quirk, and there is no way that his reflexes are that fast. He thought as he tried to reason it out the impossible, and that was what he believed it was. Impossible. The other thing that really confused him was the fact that Izuku seemed to be broader in the arms, legs, and chest, as if Izuku had bulked up overnight. He wanted answers, but he suspected that he would not get a straight answer from Izuku, so he would have to figure it out on his own. Storming off, he growled angrily with his two flunkies right behind him. Both did not say a word, not wanting to draw his wrath upon them. Mina's proof. Reaching home, Mina first called Izuku and talked to him for about an hour. Her parents did not bother trying to ask her anything, yet knowing she would not really reply to any questions while talking to him, as she ended the call with what her mother called the classic, "No, you hang up first," which caused both of her parents to chuckle, and her mother stating how cute that was. She and Izuku finally hung up at the same time. Before you guys pelt me with questions, I need some advice," she said to them, and then sat down on the couch right next to her mother. Her father was sitting in his favorite chair. I found out something, and it is really bad, and I really do not know what to do. She lowered her gaze and bit her bottom lip. How bad is it? Her mother Keiko asked, and Mina swallowed heavily. About as bad as it could be. Izuku told me some things, and I need to prove to him that I care. Mina felt some tears form within her eyes, and both of her parents were listening intently. She then slowly told them what she had gleaned from Izuku, and as she spoke, neither of them interrupted her. But she did notice that her mother was not taking it well. As she finished, her father inhaled sharply, seething with anger, and before she could do anything, her mother had grabbed her in a fierce sideways hug. Oh, that poor dear. Jean, there has to be something we can do, Keiko said, tears running down her cheek at the thought of someone that they did not really know being treated so badly. That was one of the reasons Mina loved her parents so much. They were the type that felt for others deeply. Relishing in the hug that her mother was giving her, she looked over at her father, who was gripping the arms of his chair so tightly that his knuckles were turning white. Our society is supposed to be one of tolerance. Then you tell me that not only is your boyfriend is not only a subject of bigotry and prejudice, but he is also a subject of constant torment and abuse. That is horrible beyond words, Jean stated angrily, having an intense desire to walk into that school and see how all those there liked being gored by his horns. He could tell that his wife Keiko would not mind going with him, misting some of her corrosive foaming acid onto them. What can I do? Mina asked, and her father sat back in his chair, thinking for a few minutes, and then snapped his fingers. Let's go tell this to Mirasa's father Roger. I would bet as a lawyer, he can suggest what can be done. Jean slapped his hands on the arm of his chair and stood. Both Mina and her mother Keiko did as well, all heading outside and walking 7 houses down the block. Roger Kingley was an American that while on vacation 17 years ago met and fell in love with Torisagi Hanaka. Within a month they were married and he moved his law practice here. A year and a half later, Miresa was born. The two families had been close before the Ishidos went to the United States and after they came back. At the door, Jean rang the bell and after some pleasantries, Roger took them to his home office, where Miresa sat next to Mina. While Mina was telling them the tale of woe, Roger sat behind his desk. From what Jean could tell, his friend was on the verge of homicidal rage. When Mina finished, her friend hugged her and cried. Roger, on the other hand, was containing his own emotions for about 2 seconds. Those FUC, frigging, ARGEG. Roger was pissed. He was near the point of having a complete psychotic rampage. If what you told me is true, then I will. I will personally sue the school and work pro bono. I will sue not only the school, but the teachers, the principal, and the families of every one of those that. He had stood and was pacing back and forth behind his desk. Miresa was looking at her father proudly. He breathed in and out, calming himself. First, I need to contact the superintendent of the school board. I know her personally. She will want to know about this before I bring any legal actions. He finished pacing and reached into his desk, pulling out a small notebook. He would later talk to Inko Midoriya and have her sign a document that hires him as their lawyer. Tomorrow is Sunday. Any chance I could talk to this young man? He asked, and Mina nodded, then looked over at her parents. She still did not want to expose him to them yet. Yes, I can have him come over. Here, not at my house. Mina stated firmly, and her parents frowned. Both suspected that Mina still was not ready for them to meet her boyfriend yet, which to them, they could fully understand. They could be a little intense, and Jean had his mind set on trying to intimidate anyone that dared to date his daughter. Completely worried that the two were doing something inappropriate that involved them both being naked. On Sunday, Izuku came over to the king's house where he was greeted by Mina. Then he met Miresa and her father Roger, sitting in the elder man's office, with Mina sitting beside him holding his hand tightly in hers. He answered all of Roger's questions and watched him write down everything of relevance. When done, and after a few moments for Mina to stop hugging him so tightly, Roger told him not to worry, that the legal process was about to come down on the school. Once outside, Mina again clung to him. Told you I cared. So tomorrow when you are in school, just remember that, okay? Also, Mr. Kingsley has promised me that he will bring the wrath of the legal system down upon those at the school. She told him as she hugged him. Hey Mina, Dad wants to know if you and your boyfriend want to stay for lunch. Miresa said as she came out the front door, smirking as she watched Izuku turn a bright red. Boyfriend? Izuku stuttered nervously, and Mina glared over her shoulder at Miresa, who made a hasty retreat, giggling as she shut the door. About that. I really like you, Izzy. So could we. You know, be a couple. Mina asked, blushing slightly herself. Izuku began to breath hard, then nodded. She took that as acceptance and hugged him tightly. Turning her head slightly, she pressed her lips onto his. Not a simple peck as she had done before, but a real intimate kiss. When Miresa came out to ask again, Mina told her no thanks. Then led Izuku off, away from her house though. While they walked, she smiled evilly over at him. You told me that the gym teacher likes to hit you when he has a bad day. I think I have an idea the next time he tries that. She then told him what he should do, and he was a bit reluctant to do something like that. But he found that he really could not say no to her. Feat of vengeance. Word had arrived that the school superintendent was coming, and the principal, not taking any chances, had Izuku sent to the gym where he would have no opportunity to see or talk to the superintendent. Once at the gym, of course, Orosaki was more than happy to believe that he could vent his frustration out on the quirkless weakling. But when he tried to backhand the smaller youth, he missed entirely, and his hand fanned the air. Think you are smart. You are just making it worse for you. The large man sneered, activating his quirk, and his knuckles became harder. The principal is tired of you. Tired of your mother's constant complaining. It is about time that you have an accident, one that unfortunately is fatal. He stalked towards Izuku, a huge smile on his face. He reared back, fully intending to bring his right hard-knuckled hand down with all of his might. He blinked, not wanting to miss a second of the feeling of his hand ending Izuku's life once and for all. But as his hand came down, there was a sudden blur and he felt a brief gust across him. The principal was near panic as he rushed out to meet the superintendent. He hated these surprise inspections or visits, though there was always time to have the quirkless loser Midoriya secluded away at the gym. All the teachers and none of the students would dare say anything, mainly due to that a good portion of them really did not care. The others felt like he did. Midoriya was not really alive or human. The quirkless were a subspecies that should not even exist in a world that revolves around those with power. In the parking lot, he smiled as the superintendent and another man stepped out of her car, then gasped as he watched Orosaki suddenly appear and smash his hard fist down into the superintendent's hood of her car. What the? Principal Taranka, what is the meaning of this? This man just, my car. Mary Grant said loudly as she glared first at the principal and then at the man that had just damaged her brand new car. The man pulled his fist out of her engine slowly, completely confused on what had happened. Mary Grant was a 42-year educator who was offered the superintendent job 5 years ago. So she left the United States and came to Japan. While there she became friends with Roger Kingsley and his family, since he came from the same city as she did. When he told her about this, she had an urge to beat the crap out of both Taranka and Orosaki personally, but decided to let Roger bring the wrath down upon them instead. I take it that you are Gagi Orosaki, the gym teacher? Roger asked, suppressing a smile. A little glad that Mary had suggested that they come in her car. She had wanted to show it off, since she just bought it on Saturday. The large man nodded, still confused on how it had happened. He was just about to strike down Midoriya, and then before he knew what was happening, he found himself in the parking lot. Glancing around, he noticed his target standing a few meters away with a small smile on his face. Yes, I am. Superintendent, I fully intend to pay for the damages. I have no idea what happened. Orosaki stated, swallowing heavily as he detected the faint odor of transmission fluid pooling under the car. The man with the superintendent reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. Then this is for you. Roger handed the larger man the paper and Orosaki looked at it. What is this? Orosaki asked as he unfolded the legal-looking documents. Oh, where is my manners? I am Roger Kingsley, and that there is a copy of the lawsuit. I represent the Midoriyas, and I am suing you for, well, it is printed right there on the second line. Roger said with a huge smile, and then pulled out another folded-up document. While Orosaki read, his eyes widened, and he gasped audibly. 106 million.00 yen. Are you fucking serious? Orosaki bellowed with shock and dismay. Roger handed another to Taranka, with the same amount written in under the lawsuit. What is going on, superintendent? Why? Taranka brandished the paper before Mary, and she simply smiled. Well, it has come to my attention, gentlemen, that you have trampled on the basic rights of one of your students, izuku Midoriya. Mr. Kingsley has graciously decided not to sue the school, but the two of you. Oh, by the way, gentlemen, you both are fired, of course, Mary said with a small content smile until she looked back at her destroyed car. Sirens could be heard coming from the distance. We have no idea what you are talking about. We did nothing, and what proof do you have? Taranka asked, beginning to sweat. Then to his horror, the nurse walked up carrying a large file. She smirked at Taranka and handed the file to Mary. Nurse Ayaga has documented all the injuries that you, Orosaki, inflicted upon him, along with all the injuries that you, Taranka, allowed other students and Orosaki to inflict upon him. Mary said calmly as the sounds of sirens came closer. That would be the police. You two are also in legal trouble. I would suggest that you both call a lawyer, she added, and then went to check the damage to her car. The nurse laughed as she went back inside. I'll marry the other thing, Roger said, reminding the superintendent of the other matter. She nodded and reached into the back seat of her car, handing him the hard plastic-covered pages. He walked past the two men he was suing and placed one of the laminated pages on the main door. Several of the students moved to read it. Bakugo was the first. No bullying or harassment will be tolerated. If so charged, that individual will be suspended, and it will be annotated on their permanent record. Bakugo read that first part aloud, and then noticed that there were additional rules that indicated what would be considered bullying or harassment. He swallowed heavily, glancing over to where he saw Izuku smiling broadly. You all should know, these new rules are going to be strictly enforced. Roger said to the students gathered there. You might want to pass that along. With that, he walked back to where Mary was still mourning over her car. Then watched with the others as the police handcuffed Taranka and Orasakji and placed them in the back of their police car. Roger walked up to the lieutenant of the police who was overseeing the arrest. Smiling, he pulled out another document and handed it to the police officer. What is this? The officer asked as he unfolded it. Roger simply smiled. Oh, that. It is a copy of a request that I put into the city internal affairs. Your whole department is about to be investigated for deletion of duty. Due to that, I have written proof that Miss Inko Midoriya has reported several times about the treatment of her son, Izuku Midoriya, and your department failed to conduct their sworn duty. Roger said with a huge smile. I would make an educated guess that you, along with your superiors and a good portion of your fellow officers, might not have a job by the end of the week. He continued to smile. He had gone to the public records for that department and found the complaints. He watched as the officer paled immensely. Roger then walked over to stand next to Izuku. Mina said you were going to bring the wrath down. This is remarkable. Izuku said as the police car that contained the ex-principal and the ex-gym teacher pull away. Roger smiled down at him. Oh, I ain't done yet. There is one more document in my pocket and I am about to serve it. Do you want to come with me? Roger asked and Izuku nodded. A Uber arrived and Roger had Izuku get in. Then he directed the driver to take him to the local hero agency. He noticed Izuku's expression. When I bring down the wrath, I bring it down hard, he said to the young man. Dagoba Beach. Watching the blue and green streaking blurs, Mina could not help but find it fascinating. Izuku was moving so fast back and forth that was all she could actually see. He moved to and fro, picking up assorted trash and dumped it into the dumpster. It did not take him long to fill all the dumpsters, which meant he was done for the day. He would have to wait until the city dumped them and brought them back. Appearing in front of her in a flash, she smiled and threw a towel up at him. He wiped off the sweat and then sat down next to her. Man, I am starving, he said, and she giggled. He pulled out a notebook and started reading. So have you learned anything new? Mina asked and Izuku nodded. Yep, the more I train the easier it gets for me to not need to refuel. Izuku told her, and Mina was impressed. Tomorrow I want to try something I believe will completely tear apart that abandoned truck there. She looked at the large vehicle and then over at him. How? Mina asked and he simply shrugged. Tomorrow. Right now you said you wanted to meet my mother. I still do not think it is fair that you get to meet my mother and I don't get to meet your parents. Even though I really do not wanna, it still is not fair. Izuku commented and Mina giggled again. She still believed that her parents would frighten him off, so she was not going to take any chances. Just think of it this way. You will only have to tell what happened today when Mr. Kingsley brought down the wrath, once. Not tell it to me and then to your mother. Mina said, trying to rationalize it. But he saw right through that. She just wanted to be there as emotional support for her boyfriend. Looking over at him, she noticed that he was sort of looking off in the distance. With a heavy exhale, he thought about today. Izuku was not exactly pleased when Roger stormed into the Morning Crow Hero Agency and demanded to see the lead hero, Morning Crow, slapping down an injunction on the pro hero's desk that required that all heroes and sidekicks report to the Hero Administration for re-education on the duties and responsibilities of a pro hero. Mainly because Izuku was completely into hero worship and he admired all the heroes. But Roger told him afterwards that Morning Crow, his fellow heroes and sidekicks at their agency, had failed to do their duty just like the police had failed to do theirs. The heroes at that agency needed to refamiliarize themselves with what it meant to be a hero. So after that, he had to agree with the reasoning. You still in there? Mina said, waving her hand in front of his face. Oh, sorry, Mina. I was just thinking. Izuku admitted, not realizing that he had zoned out completely, not even paying attention to her. So do you want to? He gestured with his right hand and smiled broadly. Mina inhaled softly, then smiled. Sure, why not? Just keep it in low gear, okay? Mina said as she moved around and hopped onto his back for a ride. He put his hands under her knees and tried not to think about how her body, mainly her breasts, were pressed against him. She had her arms around his neck and she rested her chin on his right shoulder. I really like this, she whispered into his ear. Okay, giddy up, she stated, and he started to run, increasing speed as he ran. Soon she had to close her eyes as he zipped along. Sure, he was only perhaps running at most 1/4 speed, but it was still about 100 miles per hour. Maybe a little more than that. Still, it was pretty fast. They arrived within minutes at his apartment, and he set her down. Wow, dude, that was awesome. It must be cool to really go full speed. She commented. I wish I could, but if I do, then I shred my clothes. I got to get some type of outfit that is resistant to friction and stresses of me going full out. Izuku told her as they entered the apartment building. He knew his mother probably was impatient as hell since she was about to meet Mina, his girlfriend. When they entered the apartment, his mother squealed and rushed towards them. Mina immediately grabbed Izuku's forearms and pulled him in front of her, hiding behind him as the elder Midoriya bared down upon them. Finally, so this is your friend, Inko stated with a huge smile. Oh, she is pretty. Mina smiled back, but still somewhat behind Izuku. Come on out, dear. I am no upset that you are taking my baby away from me. She chuckled, only imagining what Izuku had told the young girl about her. Probably something along the lines of her becoming possessively narcotic. How about this? Izuku, you go take a shower and change your clothes. That will give me and this young lady a chance to talk, she suggested, and Izuku hesitated a moment, wondering if it would be a good idea to leave Mina alone with his mother. He looked back at Mina, who nodded. Moving towards his room, he turned to look at his mother. No baby pictures and no stories, Izuku declared, and his mother grimaced, then nodded with agreement. When the door closed, she led Mina over to the kitchen table. I would surmise that Izuku told you all sort of warnings about me, that I would become emotionally upset that you are involved with my son, correct? Inko asked, and Mina nodded. He did say something along those lines, Miss Midoriya, Mina replied, and Inko shook her head. Inko, please. Though the way you look at my son and the way he looks at you, I suspect that in a couple of years, you will be calling me Mom, Inko stated with a wink, and Mina blushed. Her mother had suggested the same thing not too long ago. She coughed several times and began to breath hard. Well, that is, if we do, that is years away, Mina stammered out, and Inko laughed. The elder woman reached across the table and clasped her hand. Either way, I want to thank you for, Mr. Kingsley told me what you did. I at a time considered hiring a lawyer, but I did not fully know if what the school was doing was legal or not, and since I could not get the police or the local hero agency to intervene, I did not know what to do, Inko said to her, and Mina smiled. I wanted to prove to Izuku that I do care about him, Mina said, and Inko reached up to wipe a tear from her own eye, which caused Mina to begin to cry as well. When Izuku came out and saw the two with tears in their eyes, he was tempted to either run off or go back into his room. Well, maybe with you in his life, he will give up this foolish notion of his to take the UA practical exam, Inko said towards him, and Izuku shook his head. Son, you do not even have a quirk, and from what I have heard, without one you could get seriously hurt. She looked towards Mina, hoping that the young woman would back her up. You have not told her yet? Mina asked, looking at Izuku crossly, and he shook his head again. Well, you better. Inko looked from Mina and then at Izuku. Told me what? Inko asked, and Izuku swallowed heavily. He may not have a quirk, but he does have a certain very impressive power, Mina told her, and Inko glared at her son. He immediately appeared to look guilty. What type of power? Inko demanded, and Izuku walked over to the table and picked up the envelope that contained the power bill. It did not have a stamp on it yet. I think it would be better if I just showed you. The address for this bill is about 10 miles from here, Izuku stated, and his mother nodded. I will be right back in about 5 minutes. With that, he zipped out the door in a blur. Inko gasped and looked over at Mina, who smiled. But that is... Inko could not believe what she had just seen. Her son had moved in a blur of motion. But that was impossible. Even if it was a quirk, it did not sprout from her or her ex-husband. Hers was minor levitation of small objects, and his was fire-breathing. Neither would result in what she had just seen. A few minutes later, Izuku zipped back into the room. There was not a line at the power company, Izuku stated, placing the receipt on the table. Inko stared at it wide-eyed. Phew, I am starving, he said, and went to the refrigerator and grabbed the leftover chicken from last night. Made himself several chicken sandwiches and ate all 4. All right, young man, start talking, Inko demanded, and as Izuku finished eating, he told her all of it. So, Mom, can I take the exams? Izuku asked, and his mother was a bit reluctant, but decided that it was his decision and his life. She stood. Well, as long as you are careful, Inko advised, and then went into the kitchen. Why don't you and Mina watch TV while I make dinner? Not even bothering to ask if Mina was staying or not, for she had decided that the young girl was. At 8 p.m., Izuku ran with Mina once more on his back. You know, if you do not become a hero, you could always be a great taxi. Mina commented, holding on to him tightly as he zipped around parked cars and down the streets at what he considered a moderate speed. Nearing her home, she pulled back on his neck. Whoa there, Izzy, she commanded, and he came to almost a complete stop, then set her down. She noticed his expression. Don't fret, Izzy. At some point I know you will have to meet my parents and my brother, but right now is not a good time. Namely due to that I do not want to lose you this quickly. Oh, come on, Mina. I would not break up with you for something like that. Izuku told her, and she moved in front of him, putting her arms around his neck while he slipped his around the small of her back. I ain't taking any chances. Mina leaned closer and kissed him for several minutes. Parting, she smiled at him. See you tomorrow at the beach, she whispered, and he nodded, then kissed her. The encounter by a hero. Arriving at 3:45, Mina, like him, had gone home to change out of her school uniform, and upon walking from the train station to the beach, she saw that Izuku was already busy at work. Or she assumed it was him, for all she could actually see was a blur going to and from the trash piles to the dumpsters. The blur came towards her and stopped in front of her. Hi, Mina, Izuku said, putting his arms around her and giving her a hello kiss. She melted into that kiss. She had been thinking about him all day during school and had been looking forward to spending time with her boyfriend. Hiya, Izzy. You know what, I think I need to do some training as well. Any chance I could? I don't know, help with cleaning the beach? Mina asked, gesturing to a smaller pile and a dumpster a few feet from it. He smiled. Sure. I was thinking about something ever since we went roller skating. You told me once you can form acid from just about from everywhere. How about your feet? Izuku asked her, and Mina nodded. Yep, I can even spit it, though that is really gross. Mina told him, and Izuku chuckled. So what do you have in mind? She asked him, and he pointed over at a nearby parking lot. I was thinking if you formed some very light acid out the bottom of your feet, you could, I don't know, skate on it. Maybe have some special shoes made with holes on the bottom so you do not do it in bare feet. Izuku said, and Mina thought about that for a minute, then smiled broadly. Hey, that could work. After I work on the trash, build up the OL muscles, I will give it a try. Mina rolled up the sleeves of her sweatshirt and headed for the junk pile, while he zipped off to do the same. He had tried what he had in mind against the truck, and it worked too well. Placing his hands on the metal, he began to slap his hands at a high rate of speed onto the metal. The vibrations began to shake the truck, and then after some time it burst apart, which was not what he intended. He at most expected it to fall apart, not basically explode, sending chunks of it everywhere. He decided to try that again later, under reduced vibration speed, and that he would never do that to a person or anything alive. Neither noticed a lone individual standing on top of a nearby building watching them closely, with a broad smile, one which was his trademark. All Might was impressed. The boy seemed to have an incredible quirk. His overall speed exceeds mine drastically, he muttered as he tried to actually see the young man as he streaked back and forth. With a deep exhale, he shook his head. He had been hoping that this might be the one to pass one for all onto, but after witnessing the boy's potential, he decided that he would have to find another. But he also wanted to meet the two teenagers, inspire them to continue and possibly become heroes. So with a leap, he jumped off the building and landed at the edge of the beach. I am here, he announced, startling both of the teenagers. When All Might suddenly appeared, Izuku at first had the reflective impulse to grab Mina and bolt. Then after seeing who it actually was, he almost lost it. He had been an admirer and fan since he was little, and to see the world's #1 hero up close and personal, he felt giddy. Wow, it is All Might. I am such a huge fan, Izuku said, and then really lost it. He continued to say more, but the words were so jumbled that both Mina and All Might only heard what best would be described and sounded like one word. Before he could continue, Mina placed a hand over his mouth. Both she and All Might stared at him, slightly in shock on how fast he just spoke. Izzy, I do not know about All Might, but I could barely understand a word you just said. It was a blur of sounds. You might want to take a breath and relax, Mina advised, and Izuku slowly breathed in and out, calming himself. I think at most he wanted to say that we both are going to try to attend UA. To become heroes. All Might smiled as Izuku nodded enthusiastically. So it is not just your legs that are fast. You also speak at an incredible speed. If that was what that was. All Might stated, then pointed up at the building he had been standing on. I have watched you both, and I am most impressed with your quirks. You both have shown impressive potential, and I am pleased to learn that you both want to be aspiring heroes. Izuku shook his head. Well, All Might? I am actually quirkless. Izuku admitted, and All Might stared at him in shock. I was in an accident at a warehouse that had some chemicals stored there. Lightning hit the place, and, while I am not sure what happened. All I remember, it hurt, and I was burned. I passed out, and when I woke up, I was fine. So I went home, and after sleeping for quite a while, I found that I could run pretty fast. He gave All Might the condensed version of what had happened, not telling him that Bakugo and his cronies actually was the cause of him being in the warehouse, or that he only found out that he could run fast when he ran away from the three bullies, not wanting to burden the pro hero with the details. After all, there were drastic changes at school that would prevent Bakugo and his thugs from being his antagonist anymore. So how fast is fast? All Might asked, and Izuku shrugged, a little unsure. He can go pretty fast. He has run me home a number of times at what he calls moderate speed, and from here it only takes a few moments. Oh, my home is about 10 miles from here, Mina said, and All Might whistled. Perhaps if you were here tomorrow, I could bring a device that would be able to detect how fast you truly are. All Might suggested, and both of the teenagers smiled. It would be nice to know just how fast I can run, though I have to be careful on how fast I go, otherwise I could end up naked. Izuku said, and Mina giggled. Yeah, if he goes too fast, his clothes turn into shredded rags. Mina continued to giggle and remembered the first time she met him. His pants were so shredded they looked like shorts with long strips of fabric here or there, and his shirt could barely be considered a shirt anymore. Ah, that does seem a problem. Perhaps if you both do get into UA, the support department should be able to provide you something that would be able to handle the stresses of you going at higher speeds. All Might said as he began to wonder just how fast it would take for the air friction stresses to cause damage to material. It had to be exceedingly fast, faster than he could hope to match or anyone else that he knew of. Even Ingenium, with his leg engines at full thrust, could not even hope to go that fast. This young man might be the fastest person on Earth, and that would make him an exceptional hero. He muttered, and then glanced at his watch. He only had 10 more minutes before he had to revert to his weak and normal self. I must go. There is much I must do, he announced, then jumped high into the air, landing a few blocks away, and mist like steam flowed from him as he reverted to Toshinori Yagi. That was so cool, Izuku commented, and then noticed Mina was also impressed. So before I get back to work, what do you want to do afterwards? He asked her, and she smiled. How about we just go get something to eat, and then, I don't know, go for a walk? Mina suggested, and went back to her own physical training that consisted of carrying junk from the smaller pile over to the dumpster. An hour later, they both were done, and both were covered in dirt and sweat. Change of plans. We go to your place, clean up, and then go get something to eat. She amended, and he nodded. Back at his and his mother's apartment, Izuku nervously handed Mina a set of his own sweatpants and a matching t-shirt. She needed to borrow them since hers was dirty. What made him nervous was that she was about to go into his bathroom and take a shower, which meant she would be naked. Being a teenage boy, he had fantasized and dreamed about Mina in that condition several times. To have her now in there really affected him. When she came out wearing his sweatpants and t-shirt, he swallowed heavily. She smiled mischievously at him. Your turn, she stated, and he ducked into his bathroom. Now it was Mina's turn to think about Izuku in all his naked glory, which caused her to blush a dark shade of pink, because she too had about the same fantasies and dreams, except they had Izuku in them. A glimpse of the future. With a quick stop at one of the ramen noodle stands, the two of them walked into the nearby park to sit and eat. Mina still thought it funny on how much Izuku had to eat. Now as they sat at one of the many picnic tables, they both dug in, slurping down the long, delicious noodles. It did not take them long to finish, and once they threw away their trash, they just began to walk along, holding each other's hands, with their fingers intertwined. So tomorrow you get to find out how fast you really are, Mina said as Izuku smiled. I still do not have a complete handle on what I can do, At most, yes, I can run and move fast. But beyond that, Izuku gestured with his other hand, and Mina gazed at him. What about that vibration thing? It did. Well, destroy the truck? Mina asked, and Izuku shook his head. Takes too long, and I cannot really use that on someone. Izuku told her, and then they heard a scream further within the park. They both allowed their curiosity to get the better of them. The pro-hero Kamai Woods had no idea what to do, especially after what the villain he was facing had told the truth. That within 30 seconds, the villain was going to explode in a huge destructive blast that would destroy up to 5 city blocks. Upon glancing about, he could only think of the bystanders. But even if he did tell them to run, there was no possible way they could get far enough away to escape the explosion. 20 seconds, hero. Then boom. No more park, no more buildings, and he laughed hysterically. No more people. Ha 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 ha. The man smiled broadly at the thought of all the deaths that he was about to cause. Knowing that once he was gone, he definitely would be remembered. The bystanders had heard him and began to run. What can I do? What can I do? Kamai asked as he tried to come up with a way to stop the maniac before he killed a couple thousand people. But nothing came to him, and then he saw a blur and the man was gone. Glancing over, he heard a young girl scream. No, don't do it, Izuku. Mina dropped to her knees and cried. She had tried to stop Izuku, but he was just too fast as he ran forward, grabbed the maniac, and sped off. Marinso Togninagri gasped for air. The very breath was pulled out of him as something or someone grabbed him and now carried him off at a high rate of speed. Buildings blurred by him, and he suspected that it was some hero trying to stop him from destroying a good part of the city. He had no idea what or who it was, but he had enough air left in his lungs to gloat. No, no, matter. 10 seconds and boom, no matter how fast you are, you cannot escape. With a sneer, he began to laugh. When he and Mina arrived, they heard the villain and what he was intending to do. Izuku released Mina's hand and rushed forward. He knew it was stupid and that there was a good chance that he could die. But he could not just stand idly by and let the maniac kill and destroy. Not if he could do something about it. Grabbing the larger, taller man around his waist, he streaked away at maximum speed. Unconcerned about his clothes or the man believing that the villain intended to commit suicide. Nearing the edge of the city, he headed towards the mountains, silently counting down from 10, and when it reached 3, he stopped and dropped the man, then turned and ran back the way he had come. You are not going to make it, the maniac said cheerfully, and then he screamed. The resulting explosion was deafening, and the Izuku could feel the heat on his back as he ran, pushing himself to his maximum and beyond. He felt a strange energy surround him, and with a thundering boom, his vision blurred and he collapsed, expecting the explosion to incinerate him. But the destructive explosion was no longer there. Exhaling with relief, he slumped against a tree. It took him a good 20 minutes to recover enough to open his eyes, and when he did, he gasped and stared at the city in shock. From what he could tell, the city of Mizudafu was, or appeared to be, extremely clean and seemed to glisten with reflective light from the noon sun. A nearby clock began to chime, and Izuku counted to make sure that he was right. 12 chimes. He was utterly confused and could not even fathom what had happened. Then someone streaked up to him, wearing bright green and yellow. Hey there, Izuku. Welcome to 8 years, 5 months, and 13 days into the future. The other said, then removed his mask, and Izuku was staring at an older version of himself. Bet you are confused as hell. Well, I wish I could explain, but I need you to run to the Hero Administration building and save Mina. She is about to be killed by a sniper, and I have to go stop a disaster 50 miles from here. The future Izuku stated. Go. Unless you want. Go save Mina. She will explain what she is allowed to explain. With that encouragement, Izuku ran off as fast as he could. A second later, his older version ran off in the opposite direction. Glimpse of the future continued. Running as fast as he could, Izuku pushed himself to what he believed was his limit. But he had noticed that when his future self had arrived, that Izuku was much faster than he was. Streaking around several buildings and down the main street that led right to the Hero Administration building. His only thoughts were on saving Mina. He found it comforting that the future Izuku was concerned about her, though he did notice something interesting in the older version's tone. It was not just concern, that Izuku was deeply worried about her, as if there was something that he would have to ask the future Mina about. Nearing his goal, he spotted the sniper and he gasped. It was a woman, a blonde woman that had disheveled hair and had a sinister smile. She aimed the rifle at the front entrance and Izuku looked. They're walking with two pro heroes that he instantly recognized. One was Snipe and the other was Death Arms. Both were paying a lot of attention to Mina and not their surroundings. Pouring on the speed, Izuku tackled Mina, pushing her back inside just as the bullet struck the glass door where her head used to be. Snipe immediately shoot back, nailing the blonde woman in the shoulder. Another hero had arrived. This one was Hawk, and he soared down at where the sniper was and captured her. Thanks, Izzy. Wait a minute. Where's your uniform? Mina looked at Izuku as he helped her up and her eyes widened. Okay, I take it that you are the Izuku Midoriya from the past, right? Izuku. Or rather, my Izuku told me about this years ago. She smiled and Snipe made his way over to her. Are you alright, Mina Ashido Midoriya? I mean Pinky? Snipe asked, switching from her married name to her heroine name. As he looked at Mina, and then he gasped as he looked at the younger version of Izuku Midoriya. Okay. This is weird. Izuku Midoriya. Looks like he is, 15 years old? Mina held up her hand and shook her head. It is alright, Snipe. I will handle this. Perhaps it is best that you do not know what is going on. Give me about 20 minutes, and then I will be ready to go see the district attorney. Mina told him, and then took Izuku's arm, leading him inside the building right into a small room. Closing the door, she chuckled. I thought Izuku was, well, I wanted to believe him at the time. Now, okay, I was told I am allowed to tell you a couple of things. Snipe already slipped about the most important thing. She inhaled and then smiled. Yes, we got married, but do not ask when. I think it best you don't know that. Now we do not have a lot of time. Soon you have got to go back. First things first, you need food to refuel. She walked over to a nearby vending machine and started to feed it money, almost emptying it of all types of snack food. Tossing them onto the table, and Izuku ate. All right, you eat, and I will talk. Just listen. I have a message for me. Well, the younger me, that is, tell her that what happens at Island is not your Izuku fault. Don't ask me to explain, but make sure she understands that it is not your fault. This is important, because at that time, you and her will share something special, and no, it is not sex. The older Mina declared, knowing that would be exactly what Izuku would think it is. Now that is all I can tell you, except how for you to get back. My Izzy told me that what happened and how you got here. It comes from you being able to tap into the Speed Force, something you are not ready actually to even think about using yet. But you will discover the reasons why later when you get back. What you need to do is… Mina concentrated, wanting to make sure she got this right. Izuku was just finishing off the last powdered donut. You will need to run as fast as you can. Push yourself to your maximum, and then push yourself even more beyond that. It is going to hurt. Well, that is what he told me. Then you will feel this energy tap into it, and at that moment, concentrate on 1 minute after you left your time. Keep thinking of that moment. She smiled again and gestured at the door. You better get going. She told him, and Izuku stood. She had been extremely tempted to tell him more, especially about things like the attack at the training dome, the island fiasco, the Pussycat training camp incident, to have him warn All Might about All for One, to not let Night Eye go on the rescue mission against the Yakuza and Chisaki, and so much more. But her husband told her not to, that it was important that both of them experience and grow from those dreadful incidents, that it would bring the two of them closer together and make their love for each other bloom. So she had to agree and not divulge anything. Only about after the Island incident that really tested their relationship to the point she was going to break up with him. Then something marvelous happened when she heeded the words from the future. They discovered that they loved each other more than they thought possible. I have so many questions. Can I just ask? Izuku was about to when she shook her head negatively. Sorry, but no. Remember all those TV shows and movies? It could really fuck up the time stream if you knew too much. Mina told him and then grabbed his shoulders with her hands, looking down upon him. Izzy, thank you for saving my life. She leaned down and kissed him full on the lips. That was not me being an adulterer or me doing something inappropriate with a minor, because in this time period, you are my husband and I wanted to thank you properly. She explained mainly for herself, because to her it felt weird kissing a 15-year-old. Now get going and good luck. Also make sure you tell Mina the message and about this. Oh, all but the married part. Wait for that for a while. With that, Izuku was hustled by her out the door of the Hero Administration building. Getting ready, he could not help but overhear Death Arms. The sniper was Himiko Toga. She was hired by. Death Arms was about to continue, but Mina held up her hand, stopping him. She glanced over at Izuku and shooed him away with her right hand, indicating for him to leave. So he did at moderate speed, heading for the ocean where he could cut loose and go full out. Once he was out of sight, Death Arms continued. She confirmed it. She was hired by Mineta to stop you from exposing his little embezzlement schemes and his other illegal activities. Mina shook her head, remembering how stupid and perverted that Minoru Mineta truly was. It had been an easy task to locate the information and make copies of it. From his embezzling funds from one of the hero agencies to his half-interest in a prostitution ring. That had been her assignment, and she had succeeded. Though mostly thanks to her husband, who helped her gain access to Mineta's safe. Now Mineta was in custody, and she was on her way to present that information in court. Well, no one said that Mineta was smart. Let's get this over with so I can put in my resignation right afterwards. Mina declared as she reached down and touched one of the things she was not about to tell the past Izuku. Believing that the younger version would freak out if he discovered that not only was Mina his wife, but she was pregnant with their firstborn. The return. The ocean water was under his feet, and of course Izuku did not sink. He was going to fast. At about 20 miles out, he did a long loop and headed back towards the shore, then increased his speed to maximum, grimacing as he felt the remainder of his clothes basically start to disintegrate. Pushing himself to go even faster, he began to feel the energy, but he also felt intense pain. Ignoring the pain, he forced himself to go faster and then faster, until he was in such pain that he screamed, and then with a final burst, his feet struck sand. He dropped onto the gritty beach and panted for air. Okay, now I know why, she said. I am not ready to do that. Yet, doing it hurts a lot, he said as he drew in deep breaths of air. It took him a good half-hour to stand up, and then he noticed that he only had a few straps of clothing left. Somehow his cell phone had survived. He knew he was back, because he could see that the city was back to what he remembered. That, and he could just make out a radio station from a passing car state the time and date. Calling Mina, he slumped against the cement retaining wall and waited for her to arrive. To him, right now Dagoba Beach, even covered with trash, looked beautiful to him. When Mina finally arrived, she basically tackled him and hugged him so tightly, he had a hard time breathing. Then after she pelted him with kisses, she slugged him in the shoulder. Don't ever do something that stupid again, you idiot. She yelled, then hugged and kissed him again. Mina, let's not tell my mother what I did. I doubt she would take it well, Izuku said to her, and Mina shook her head, then laughed. Do something that's stupid and foolish again, and I will, Mina stated, and then continued to hug and kiss him. It took her a good half-hour before she moved to sit next to him at the wall. It was at that point he told her what had happened, and she stared at him in shock. So you went to the future? Are we, together? He shifted uncomfortably and wondered if he should tell her that in the future they were married. Well, okay, your future self advised I not say, not for some time, Izuku nervously said, and Mina now wanted details. But his stomach started to growl. Sounds like someone is hungry. That, or we are about to be attacked by a bear. Mina stood and gestured over her shoulder at the nearby store. Come on, I will buy you a store burrito. I guess I can wait a bit to find out about that. Though I would like to know, how did I look 8 years from now? She asked as they walked to the store. You looked amazing, Izuku replied, and as Mina nuked the burrito, his stomach growled again. She wanted more details, but decided to wait, knowing that Izuku would probably not give too many specifics about what he learned, though she would make sure to remember what her future self had said, still wondering what it meant. But then she thought that it could wait. She had a more important matter to bring up, one that she had waited to ask him about until now. Izzy, this Friday my school is having a dance. I would really like it if you went with me, Mina said, and Izuku stopped chewing on the burrito, swallowing the part almost whole. I don't know, Mina. For one, I do not go to your school, and secondly, and this is really important, I do not know how to dance, Izuku informed her, and Mina giggled. That is no problem. Most that go there can't dance either, and you would be going as my boyfriend. So, can we? Mina asked, and Izuku exhaled, then nodded. Great. We can work out the details tomorrow after our workouts. She told him, and then after he finished his burrito, she clasped his hand with hers, interlacing her fingers into his. 0. Back at the park, Kamai Woods made first his report to the Hero administration, leaving out a lot of details. One of them being that a teenage boy who happened to move extremely fast had actually saved the city and a lot of innocent residents of that area. When the villain had exploded miles away, the destruction was massive and would have killed a great number of people. That is if it happened here. He was just as vague with the reporters, but noticed one of them was not believing the bullshit he was sprouting. After the others left, the red-haired woman approached him. Okay, how about not being so vague this time? I suspect it was the same young man that had rescued the hostages at the Gallery movie theater last week, that also basically saved everyone here, she stated, and Kamai shifted uncomfortably. I have no idea what you were talking about, because if it was a young man, and I am not saying it was, the Hero administration would not be so indisposed or happy that an unlicensed teenager did something that saved this part of the city from a disaster. There would be a good chance that they would seek punishment over praise, Kamai Woods said, and the reporter smiled. Yes, that tends to be their way. I guess the unknown savior will just have to remain unknown for a time, the reporter said, and then winked at Kamai, walking away, tearing her notes out of her notebook and throwing them into a nearby trash can. She was not about to do a story on whoever it was. Later, though, once this unknown came out into the light, then she would revamp the story of both incidents and make sure that it really highlighted that the young man was a hero. The dance. Wearing exactly what Mina suggested for him to wear, Izuku was not the most stylish person when it came to clothes, generally wearing whatever felt comfortable. But she had insisted that he wear a light blue short-sleeved button-up shirt, black pants, and black shoes. Nearing her street, he slowed down. He had run since it was a lot faster, even when he only ran at moderate speed. Then he saw her, and he almost wiped out. She was wearing a short black and yellow striped skirt with matching button-up blouse, and she had left the top 2 buttons unbuttoned to show off some cleavage. When she saw him, she smiled. Hiya, Izzy. So how do I look? She asked him, and his mouth gaped open. Wow. Izuku stammered out, swallowing heavily, forcing his eyes from staring at her. You look absolutely amazing. Mina blushed slightly and looked him over. Not bad. Not the most stylish, but you do look really nice. Shall we go? Mina asked, gesturing with her right-hand thumb over her shoulder towards where her school was located 3 blocks away. He stepped closer and took her hand, interlacing his fingers into hers. She bumped him with her left shoulder, and they began to walk. She could not wait to get there, wanting basically to flaunt and show off her boyfriend to her friends. They had wanted to officially meet him almost from the day that she had gone out with Izuku. As they neared her school, they both could hear music coming from the gymnasium and a few of Mina's school mates walking inside. It was easy to tell that Mina loved to dance, and after several songs, Izuku just could not shake the feeling that he was hopeless in that department. Then the DJ played a slow song, and Mina almost tackled him. She smiled broadly as she slipped her arms around his neck, while he had his nervously around her waist. Isn't this a blast, Izzy? She asked him as they slowly moved about. I guess so, Izuku replied, then glanced over at the several boys that had tried to cut in. Each time Mina turned them down, stating that she was only going to dance with her boyfriend, which did not go over too well with them. He had watched 2 of them dancing with others and could easily tell that they were a lot better at it than he was. You know, Mina, I am not that good at this. From what I could tell, those others are way better. You might have a better time if you danced with them instead of me, he suggested, and Mina pouted at him. Nope, don't care if you are not that good. What makes it fun is that I get to dance only with my boyfriend, Mina told him, and was thoroughly tempted to kiss him. But with the chaperones all over the place, that was impossible. When that song ended, she reluctantly let go of him. Let's get some punch, she told him, and then led him over to the punch bowl, drinking down 2 cupfuls. Be back in a minute. Gotta powder my nose, she said, smiling at him. After she left, Izuku began to feel a bit out of place. He did not know anyone here, though at his own school he did know his classmates, but did not actually socialize with any of them. He barely noticed when someone made his way over to him. Hello there, I am Kirishima, Ijiro Kirishima. You must be Izuku Midoriya. Ashido almost non-stop talks about you, Kirishima said with a small smile, reaching out his right hand, which Izuku shook it. You a friend of hers? Izuku asked, and the other nodded. In a way, she actually kind of motivated me too. I want to become a hero, and, well, I needed someone to motivate me so I can become one. Ashido kind of did that, Kirishima said, and Izuku was a little confused. Before he could ask, Mina returned with two other girls in tow. Hey Kirishima, see you have met my boyfriend Izzy. Oh, his real name is Izuku Midoriya, but I call him Izzy. Mina said as she introduced her two girlfriends and then ambled over to clasp Izuku's hand possessively. When another slow song began to play, she hustled him back onto the dance floor, throwing her arms around his neck and smiling contently at him. An hour later the dance was over, and after saying their goodbyes, they left. Walking Mina home, Izuku turned towards her. I have to admit, I actually had a good time, he said to her, and Mina smiled broadly. Good. Whoops. This is as far as you. OHSHIT. Mina looked towards her house, and both of her parents were outside. Upon seeing the two teenagers, her mother and father made their way towards them. Okay. Run. Full speed. Crap. Wait. I did not get any kisses. Fine, I guess I can't put this off forever, can I? Then, as her parents got closer, she tightened her grip onto his hand. Mom, Dad, fancy seeing you outside tonight, she sarcastically said, and both of her parents descended upon them. Well, we think that it is about time that we met your boyfriend, right, Jean? Her mother stated, and her father glared at Izuku. So let's go inside and have some proper introduction, shall we? With that, the two elder Ishidos escorted the two teenagers inside. Inside the house, Mina made sure she sat directly next to Izuku. She knew that her warped parents were about to employ the good cop, bad cop routine on Izuku, and wanted to make sure that they did not get too involved in whatever role each of them was going to undertake. Though she suspected her father was going to be the bad cop, mainly due to that he was glaring at Izuku, attempting to intimidate him. I want to know what your intentions are for my daughter, her father finally said, sitting across from them as her mother did the same. He intends to do all kind of sordid things with me, most of them involving me naked. Mina quickly chimed in, and Izuku gasped audibly. Both of her parents stared at her wide-eyed. Izuku, though, felt like he was about to have a stroke. Mina, why? Why would you say that? No? No. She is kidding. My intentions are nothing but honorable. I swear. My mother would kill me if I. Izuku then noticed that all three were suppressing their laughter, and he sunk back against the couch. That was not funny, he protested, and Mina leaned closer to him, placing her head on his shoulder and looking slightly up at him, giving him the sad, pleading eyes which instantly made Izuku want to forgive her for anything. He could not resist that look, mainly due to that it made her look so incredibly beautiful that he had to forgive her. Sorry, Izzy, I could not resist. Mina then blinked her eyes, and Izuku groaned. I hate when you do that. I should be allowed to be upset with you. Izuku slumped, and Mina smiled warmly at him, as did her parents. Look at that, Jean. She already has him wrapped around her little finger, Keiko stated, and Mina smiled at her mother. Now I believe we need to have a little chat. What we have been able to glean from Mina does not really tell us much about you, though it is getting late. So this will be a short little talk. She then gazed over at her husband. Yes, and once it is done, I will drive you home. That way you won't have to take the train, Jean offered, and Mina shook her head. Actually, he does not need to take the train. He will simply run home, Mina said, and both of her parents looked at her confused. But what you told us. He lives at least 10 miles away. It would take him a couple of hours to run that far, Keiko stated, and Mina shook her head again. Nope, he can do it in a few minutes, even sooner if he wants to. Right, Izzy? Mina looked fondly over at him, and Izuku nodded. This caught both of Mina's parents off guard. Neither of them ever heard of anyone having a quirk that made someone so fast as to run 10 miles in only a few minutes. Jean snapped his fingers. The gallery movie theater incident. It was on the news. Someone was able to get all 27 people out of the theater in almost a blink of an eye, and then disarm the entire terrorist group within 2 to 3 minutes. That was you, wasn't it? Jean asked, and Izuku nodded. Mina, you were one of them that was saved. You told us that you were not inside when that happened. That was a lie, wasn't it? Keiko asked her daughter, who looked guiltily over at Izuku. So Mina were there, and I take it that you saved her. Again, Izuku nodded. Later, young lady. Me and you are going to have a discussion about you lying to me. But thank you for saving her. In fact, Mom, he saved me first, and then everyone else. Mina put in, and this pleased both of her parents. Oh, and I guess you should know. Izzy is also the one that got that maniac on Monday far enough away that he did not destroy a good portion of the city when he blew up. She told them, and they both smiled at him. Please don't tell anyone. He wants to go to UA, and if the Hero administration found out that well, they might not let him go. She wanted Izuku to go to the UA because she was planning on going, and she wanted her boyfriend finally in the same school as her. Yeah, I believe you are right about that one. So back to the matter at hand. Jean said as he leaned closer. I take it you really like Mina. Yes, a lot. In fact, I love her. Izuku swallowed heavily. He really felt uncomfortable admitting that he did love Mina in front of her parents, not wanting them to think he was just saying that he loved her in hopes that he might do something sordid with her. He knew some boys did that. He had seen and overheard some of the neighborhood older boys gloating over how they tricked some girl into going all the way by simply telling them that they loved them. Then after, these same boys would dump the girls and move on to another. Though he had insight into that he and Mina were destined to be together when he accidentally went into the future. But he did not have complete details, and he knew that he did not want to screw up the future by doing anything wrong. It made him of Back to the Future Part 2. If he did something to alter the future, it could split off to a future in which he and Mina never stayed together, which was something he did not want to happen. Good. Now let's discuss something really important. Say like in about 3 years, a small wedding ceremony, and then, I want grandkids. Keiko said with a small smile. This time Mina gasped and started to hyperventilate, fully knowing that her mother was not kidding. She was serious. When she looked over at Izuku, he was as pale as she ever saw him get. His eyes fluttered and he fell backwards, fainting against the couch. Oh great mom, you killed him, Mina declared, and her two parents laughed. Meeting the parents continued. Lightly tapping Izuku's cheek, Mina spoke softly to him, attempting to bring him around. She almost did the same thing when she came to the realization that her mother was not kidding, fully expecting and planning for them to get married in exactly 3 years and start pumping out kids. Though for her parents, she was the only hope for grandchildren since her brother was not into girls, which Mina or her parents did not have a problem with. But that only left Mina to have children. So to her parents it made perfect sense now that she had a boyfriend. You know, there is a chance that we might not even be together in 3 years, she said, still trying to wake Izuku. Her mother laughed. Yeah right, my dear. You talk about him constantly, and you barely hang out with your school friends anymore after school. I am betting that you and him are going to be together for a long time, Keiko said, and finally Izuku came around. Maybe we should table the talk for now. It is getting late, and I do not want his mother to become upset that we are the reason he is not at home before 10 p.m. She stood, and then so did her husband. Both headed upstairs, leaving Mina alone. Your mother was not serious, was she? Izuku asked, and Mina bit her bottom lip. That is not important right now. Did you or did you not tell my parents that you loved me? Mina asked with a wry smile, and Izuku licked his dry lips. He had said that, and at the time he had hoped that Mina was more focused on her parents not embarrassing her. He swallowed heavily, and then nodded. Yeah, I guess I did, Izuku said, and Mina lunged at him, kissing him passionately. Oh, what a time for you two. Shit. You could have said that sooner, and then we could really make out. But now it is nearing 10 p.m., and if you don't get home soon, your mom is going to blame me. Mina protested as she hustled Izuku towards the door. Oh, by the way, I love you, she said softly, and Izuku smiled. Love you too. Izuku stepped down the steps, and after Mina shut the door, he began to run, increasing speed until he was running at his normal moderate pace. 10 miles seemed to blur by as he ran, and soon he was in front of the apartment building. When he reached for the door, someone grabbed his shoulder. Deku, we need to talk, Bakugo stated firmly. I just saw you arrive. And oh bullshit. And oh more lies. Tell the fucking truth. What the fuck was that? He demanded, and Izuku inhaled. Kaken. I can run and move at incredible speed. Faster than anyone on Earth, Izuku said, and Bakugo glared at him. Do you remember the day that you chased me into that chemical warehouse? He asked him, and Bakugo gritted his teeth together. He then told him, and for a minute Bakugo just stared at him wide-eyed. Then he growled and stormed off. Shaking his head, Izuku went inside, and as he rode the elevator up, Mina sent him a text telling him that the gallery was going to play the Alien movies again, so they could go and hope this time no idiot terrorist ruined their date. Monday, long run. Arriving at school, Izuku could still feel the change, especially when there were 4 security officers to ensure that the new anti-bullying policies were being enforced. Bakugo and his cronies had to behave themselves, otherwise they could end up being suspended from school. So all in all, it was extremely better at school for Izuku. No longer tormented or singled out for any type of abusive treatments. As he was about to sit at his desk, he was called down to the principal's office. At 7 a.m., All Might walked into the Hero Administration building. It was a rare occurrence for him to be summoned to appear so early in the morning, so he knew it must be important. He was met by one of the directors and 2 other men at the main entrance. The elder of the 2 greeted him excitingly. All Might, this is extremely important. How fast could you get to northern section of Okinawa? The man asked, and All Might smiled his usual smile. If I push it, about 3 hours. All Might replied, and the man winced, then shook his head. No, it won't do. He was our last hope. The man said, and the director exhaled sharply. Can someone tell me what is going on? All Might asked, and the director gestured towards the younger man who was paying most of his attention to a small white plastic backpack that had lights and panels on it. In that backpack is a transplant heart. Currently, the daughter of an American ambassador is at the northern Okinawa hospital awaiting to have that transplant. The problem is that she is. The director looked over at the older of the 2. The problem we face is that she does not have that much time left, at most 6 hours from now. If she does not get that transplant heart in the next 3 to 4 hours, then she is not going to make it. You are our last hope to get the transplant heart there in time. The man said sadly, sitting heavily on a nearby chair. All Might smiled. Maybe not. I believe I know of someone that probably could get the heart there in time. All Might said as he hoped he was right. He was not sure, since Powerloader had not been able to make the device yet to measure the young man's speed. So he was not entirely sure if Izuku Midoriya was actually fast enough to do it. But there was no choice, they had to at least try. Come with me, he told them, and within 20 minutes they entered the school. Stepping into the principal's office, Izuku was surprised to find All Might waiting along with 3 other men. All Might immediately told him the situation, and Izuku sighed audibly. I don't know if I can. That is at least 400 miles away. I have not run at full speed for that long or that far yet. I do not know if I even can, he told them. Then he shrugged. But I will try. The youngest of the 3 men handed Izuku the backpack and instructed him about checking the readings to make sure the heart was viable. Slinging it over his back, he smiled. All Might, could you tell Mina Ashido where I went? She will be at the Dagoba beach at about 4 p.m. I do not want her to think I stood her up, he asked, and All Might nodded. Oh, one more thing. I need some money. This puzzled all of the adults. I need to buy snacks and food along the way to refuel, he explained, and the elder gave him what he had. About 30,000 yen. Thanks. He put the money in one of the side pockets of the backpack and headed for the exit, making 3-second stop to change into his gym clothes, and then continued outside with all the adults in tow. Once outside, he inhaled deeply and then bolted at about half speed. To those watching, he was nothing but a streaking blur as he ran off. Whoa, he is really fast, the director said with awe, and All Might smiled. At the outskirts of the city, Izuku went all out. Full speed, and soon he was zooming along, dodging around vehicles that were on the highway. Glancing at the travel distance sign that he passed in a blink of an eye, it indicated that he had 390 miles to go. With an exhaled breath, he concentrated on maintaining his speed. Mile markers blurred by him in rapid succession, and as he reached 113, he slowed down and sped into a convenience store. Grabbing several packages of Hostess peanut butter bars, he slapped 2,000 yen on the counter and was out the door within 20 seconds, gobbling down all 5 packages as he ran, increasing speed once more when he finished. He would have to stop again along the way for something else, but right now he was good to go. Back in his class, Bakugo could not take it any longer. When Izuku had left, he had an intense need to know why. Then the principal had come to tell the teacher that Midoriya was dismissed for the day. Now he was frustrated to the point of anger. Standing when the bell rang, he headed first to the principal's office and then out front to where, to his surprise, was All Might. I think that he will make it within an hour, the #1 hero declared, and one of the men with him looked at his phone. Holy, he has only been gone about 10 minutes, and he is already a good 100 miles away. Just how fast is that kid? The man asked, and All Might simply shrugged. He had no idea. What the FFF is going on? Bakugo demanded, and all the adults turned towards the brash young man. All Might smiled broadly. Young Midoriya is saving a life. All Might replied, and then walked away, with all the others as they headed either to a nearby car, or in All Might's case, he simply leaped into the air, leaving Bakugo confused. So he went back inside, fuming about how a quirkless loser somehow gained an incredible power. Less than 100 miles from the hospital, Izuku found he was in trouble. He had lost one of his sneakers 50 or so miles back, and the other was just about to fall off. Barely anything left of the one left. His socks were the next to go after he lost his left sneaker. Then luckily, he spotted a sign that indicated that a second-hand store was just ahead. Slowly he entered, found a pair of sneakers and socks. Leaving all he had left on the counter, he continued on. Though he had another problem arise. He was basically running on empty. But he had no choice, he had to get there as soon as possible. It took another 15 minutes for him to traverse the distance, and as he neared the double doors, he skidded to a stop. Breathing heavily and feeling lightheaded. Wobbling, he stepped up to the reception desk. The nurse looked up at him, and she gasped. Can I help you? The woman asked, and Izuku eased the backpack onto the desk. This, Huff, Puff, is the Huff, Puff, the trans. Huff Puff, plant, Huff Puss heart. Izuku took deep inhales and exhales, completely out of breath. The nurse nodded and quickly called for someone over the phone, and within minutes an older man with dark brown hair stepped off the elevator. Dr. Hinshinta said that someone was bringing this. The man looked at the diagnostic screen and smiled. Good, it is still viable, young man. Thank you. Thank you so much. Then he really looked at Izuku and turned back to the nurse. Get him something to wear, nurse. Izuku looked down and then squeaked audibly, grabbing a nearby newspaper and covering himself. There was not much left of his gym clothes, and his underwear just barely covered his privates. The new-bought sneakers were smoking, and now he could easily detect the smell of burnt rubber. Is there anything else you might need, young man? The nurse asked, and Izuku nodded. Yeah, food. I am absolutely starving. Izuku replied. The nurse, after giving him a sweatpants and a t-shirt, directed him towards the cafeteria, while the doctor took the heart up to surgery where the young girl was already waiting. Sitting at one of the tables an hour later, he sighed contently. Before him was over a dozen empty plates. Thankfully, the doctor had informed the cafeteria to let him eat as much as he wanted, free of charge. At first, the staff watched him in awe as he almost ate everything they had in the buffet line. But after learning what he did, they almost insisted that he have whatever he wanted. Now he was just waiting for word on if the transplant had been successful, not willing to leave until he did. Drifting off, sometime later the same doctor touched his left shoulder. Thank you again. Stephanie is doing fine. She should be up and about in about a week. The doctor told him, and Izuku smiled widely. The ambassador wishes to thank you personally. He is waiting upstairs outside the recovery room. Standing, Izuku followed the doctor, and once upstairs, a middle-aged man almost tackled him, hugging him tightly, sobbing with delight, and thanking him repeatedly. 0. En route to Dagoba Beach, All Might listened to the wonderful news on his cell phone as an excitable doctor was almost blabbering. Hanging up the phone, he saw Mina Ashido waiting impatiently near one of the dumpsters, checking her watch every couple of minutes. When she saw him, she hurried over to him. He told her what Izuku was doing, and she smiled proudly. Then he told her the really good news, which included her, that she and Izuku did not have to worry about the entrance written exam or the practical exam, due to they were both going to receive a recommendation, since he had made sure the director understood the importance of both of them attending UA together. Mina squealed so loudly that All Might had to cover his ears with his hands. 0. It took Izuku twice as long to get back, because he was tired and not able to actually go full speed as he did on the way. Nearing home, he veered towards Mina's house, hoping she was home. As he slowed down to a walk, he almost tripped on his own feet. Then he saw Mina waiting outside her house for him. She smiled at him, and as he neared her, she threw her arms around his neck, and he leaned against her heavily. Izzy, you look like you are about to keel over, she commented, and he nodded. I feel like I could. Izuku tiredly said, and Mina scowled at him. You should have gone home, then called me. Mina stated firmly, and he sighed. Wanted to see you. Izuku said, feeling better now that he had her in his arms, and Mina smiled again, hugging him even tighter to her. Come inside, before you fall on top of me, Mina said as she helped him inside her house. Her parents were upstairs watching Jeopardy and attempting to give the right answers. Of course, neither were even close. Having him sit on the couch, she sat next to him and had him put his right arm over her shoulders. Then she leaned her head against his side and took his left hand in her right, interlacing her fingers into his. He sighed and had to force his eyelids to remain open. Don't go to sleep. Rest a bit, and then call your mom and tell her you are going to stay the night here. She told him, and he stared at her in shock. Izzy, I doubt you could make it down the street before you pass out. You are staying here until morning, on the couch. She clarified, and he lightly nodded. When he called and told his mother that, she was a bit skeptical, and then after Mina reassured her that Izuku was going to sleep on the couch, and this was not a ploy for them to fool around. His mother half-heartedly agreed. After she hung up, she looked over to see that he had passed out. Getting up, she took the throw blanket and put it on him, tucking him in, then kissed him on the right cheek. Smiling, she headed up to her parents' room to inform them of their guest that was spending the night on the couch. Awakening early, Izuku reached up and rubbed the stiffness out of his neck. He had fallen asleep sitting up, and now he was regretting that. But he felt extremely better. Standing, he made his way over to what he hoped was the bathroom. After doing his business, he made his way to the kitchen and towards the aroma that drifted from the kitchen. Opening the swinging door, he saw Mina's mother cooking breakfast. She smiled at him. Good morning, dear. You look better than you did when I checked on you last night. Mina told us what you did. That was pretty heroic, Keiko said as she poured Izuku a cup of coffee. What would you like in your coffee? She asked, and Izuku smiled. 2 splashes of cream and 14 tablespoons of sugar, Izuku replied, and Keiko looked at him in shock. It takes a lot of calories to basically fuel my speed, he said, and she chuckled, handing him his coffee. He sniffed the brew and sighed. Suddenly, 2 arms encircled him from behind and squeezed him tightly. Good morning, Mina. Good morning, Izzy. This feels nice hugging you this early in the morning, Mina said as she gave him another squeeze and then looked at her mother, who seemed to be staring at her oddly. What, Mom? Her mother chuckled. We will have to have Izuku spend the night more often. Usually I have to almost throw a bucket of water on you to get you up in the morning, Keiko commented, and Mina glared at her. Though not minding having Izuku spend the night again, she enjoyed coming downstairs and finding him there, not having to wait until late afternoon to see him, hug him, and then when they were alone, kiss him. Generally, all she got in the morning was about a 20-minute phone call. She looked about as she continued to hug Izuku from behind. Say, where's Dad? Usually he is buzzing around by now, Mina asked, and Keiko chuckled. He is going to be a little late today. He spent the entire night making sure that you, Keiko pointed at her daughter, remained in your room and did not sneak down to join Izuku for a midnight tryst. Or you, Izuku, did not try to go upstairs for the same reason, she said, and Mina laughed. Then it serves him right to be tired this morning. Geez, Mom, if I wanted to fool around with Izuku, I could do it any time I wanna. All I have to do is bring him here right after school. You and Dad don't come home until 4 p.m. That would give us at least an hour, Mina said with a huge smile on her face as Izuku paled, placing a plate of eggs, sausage, and toast in front of Izuku. Well, I guess from now on I will be coming straight home after work, her father said as he stomped down the stairs, looking haggard and tired, then gasped as he watched Izuku inhale his breakfast within a couple of seconds. Mina moved around and sat across Izuku's lap, comfortably, pulling her own plate over in front of her. As she ate, she fed him her toast. Gah, it is too early for cutesy stuff like that, her father growled as he drank his coffee, really needing the caffeine to kickstart him. When they both were done, Izuku borrowed shorts and a t-shirt that he suspected was Mina's brother's. I better get home, Mina. I do have to go to school today, and I will need to study tonight instead of going to the beach. The written exam for UA is only 2 weeks from now, he said to her, walking to the door, and Mina went with him, shaking her head. Once at the door and out of sight of her parents, she stepped in front of him. Oh, I forgot to tell you. All Might told me yesterday at the beach. You and me do not have to take the written or practical exams. We both got a Hero Administration Director recommendation, Mina told him, and he smiled. Both of us. Izuku asked, unable to actually believe it. Mina nodded. Yep, though All Might had to insist they give me one, because he believes that we both need to attend together. Isn't that great? Mina asked, and Izuku this time nodded. Yeah, it does. Unlike Kaken, I have not really studied the hero manual that much, more intent on learning about what I can and cannot do. Izuku said, and Mina fully understood. But she was actually really pleased that she did not have to take the written exam. She did have the time to study. Problem with that was she had difficulties remembering what she had studied. So getting a free pass on that, because she was with Izuku romantically, really was perfect. Especially now she did not have to worry if they would not be in the same class. With a dual recommendation, she was guaranteed to be in the same class as him. He glanced at the clock. Well, I better get going. He was about to open the door when Mina grabbed his hand. Where do you think you are going? I want my kisses. Mina demanded and put her arms around his waist, pulling him closer to her. Tilting her head to the left, she pressed her lips onto his, humming contently as he kissed her back. She finally released him a good 10 minutes later. See you later, right? She asked him, and he nodded. Then he left, and she sighed. She could not wait until they went to the same school. Only seeing him a couple hours a day really sucked. Mission accomplished. With a final dash, Dagoba Beach was clean of all the dumped trash. Now walking normally, Izuku went over to join Mina as she wiped the sweat of her forehead with a towel. So we are done. Guess we will need to find something else to do together, besides working our butts off. She stated, looking out across the beach with a smile of accomplishment. Yes, it had only taken about 2 weeks to clean the beach, and now that it was done, she had to admit that it felt good to do something like this. I have an idea. What would you say about us just hanging out after class? Izuku suggested, and Mina stood. Sounds perfect. Oh shit, here comes All Might. Mina said as she gestured towards the walkway, and All Might. The #1 hero had come several times to check on their progress, not actually doing anything other than make suggestions on how to proceed. I am here, All Might announced as he walked over to them, without his usual grandeur approach, holding out a small device. Powerloader finally was able to construct something to measure how fast you can go. Are you up to giving it a shot? He asked, and Izuku smiled. Sure, I am not even tired or hungry. Izuku took the device, and All Might held on to another that looked a lot like a cell phone. So what do I do? He asked, and All Might pointed off to the north. Run that way as fast as you can for about 10 or so miles. Then come back. By then we should have an accurate reading. All Might told him. If he does that, then by the time he comes back, there is a good chance he would be naked. Mina stated, and Izuku blushed slightly. She was right. When he went at full speed, his clothes generally did not survive. There is a second-hand store right over there. All Might give me some money, and I will go get him something to wear after he gets back. She ordered, and All Might reached into his pocket and handed her several thousand yen. She smiled and headed for the store. Hey Mina, just something I would wear, not something you want me to wear. Izuku said, and Mina scowled, then smirked. Going inside the store. 5 gets you 10. She comes back with extremely tight shorts and a muscle shirt. He whispered, then he had to smile. There were several times when he was cleaning the beach. He slowed down to normal to move something heavy, and he had caught her staring at him with a certain gleam in her eyes. Okay, I am ready, he said, and All Might held up the sensor pad. With a deep inhale, he took off. Sand blew upwards from where he had started, and it took a few seconds for the particles to disperse enough for All Might to see that Izuku was gone. Looking at the small screen, he whistled. So how fast does it say he is going? Mina asked as she walked up holding a shopping bag, and she handed back the change to All Might. Right as he took off, it indicated that he is going 300 miles per hour, and it is rising. Whoa, he is now going over 500 miles per hour, and it is rising. All Might told her, and a few minutes later Izuku returned. Of course, his clothes were a shredded mess. He looked over at All Might. This thing does not go above 1,000 miles per hour. Reach that speed. I suspect that is your top speed right now. In time, that could actually increase. He told them. Izuku and Mina smiled. That is pretty fast, Izzy. No wonder you can move in a blink of an eye. Mina commented, and Izuku thought about his future self. He had seen it. His future self was at least twice as fast as he was. That was scary and a bit thrilling. Yeah, that explains why my clothes do not hold up, Izuku said, and All Might mentally set a reminder to ask Powerloader about making some type of uniform that could withstand the stresses of Izuku running that fast. Next week is the entrance exams and practical exams. Maybe you two should come and watch. It would give you the opportunity to meet some of the potential applicants. All Might suggested, and the two teenagers agreed.